This episode of Champ and the Tramp is brought to you by Bubba Coos Burritos with over 30 locations for your eating pleasure.
A burrito a day keeps the doctor away.
I love it.
Real show, here we go. Real show, here we go. You know that it's gotta be that time, so this is what we chant. What keeps on getting them all amped in advance? Come on. You and I rocking out with Iron Man, FE. You get the general's point of view on top of Rogers' rants. Whenever tapping out, we're putting the most minutes in. You already know what that's about, you know that winners win. Crush whatever's on task, check the podcast. It's the Champ and the Tramp, let the bomb blast.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Champ and the Tramp podcast. We have a special guest in for you guys today. We have Larry Hagner in from Dad's Edge podcast. Frankie and I have both been lucky enough to do his podcast. Also founder of the Good Dad Project, which we want to talk about today, find out exactly what that is. Larry flew all the way in from St. Louis, man, so thank you, brother. Thank you for coming in. So,
man.
This is kind of a first for us. We've had a lot of guests on, but I don't think ever one just dedicated to fatherhood per se. So this is going to be cool, man.
Man, I'm excited, and you and I are still fighting after this, right?
Yeah.
Let me rephrase. You're gonna beat me up, right?
You see the black eye in Roger, right?
I know you could do some damage, man. I don't want any of that. But yeah. You know, I was actually on another podcast yesterday, and it was this sort of like early podcast for this dad show, and this host called me the OG of dad podcast. I'm like, the OG?
Yeah,
I was like, I've been doing it for 6 years, but I didn't know like the OG. I was like, wow, okay, all right.
6 years. Wow, man.
6 years, yeah.
I think you are the OG because, to my knowledge, I mean, I'm a little too new to the podcast world, but I don't know any podcast that's solely, strictly dedicated to fatherhood, you know. And not only that, you're the founder of the Good Dad Project. Can you kind of fill us in on exactly what that is? And
I definitely can. So, are you ready for this?
We're ready. Let's go.
Okay,
Can't
all right.
wait.
So, one day, 2012, I woke up and I was like, I know everything there's to know about fatherhood. I need to share this with the world. And if you believe that, I'll tell you another one. No, actually, I had just an absolute crazy childhood. I don't say that out of pity or anything like that, but like my mom was married 3 times. I was born in 75. My parents were married for, yes, you too. I know we're the same age. I was born in 75. They were married for about 4 years. And the crazy thing is they got divorced like about a year after I was born, and he left. And I'll never forget it, man. I was 4 years old, and it was just me and my mom. I didn't feel like I was missing out on a thing, but I was in preschool. I'll never forget, 41 years ago, I'll never forget this. And I remember men coming to pick up their kids. So I knew what a dad was, and I just knew I didn't have one, but I didn't bother me. I thought that the moms go out and find dads. Like, that's how dads came about. So I'll never forget, man, the first time my mom brought a guy home, I was 4. They worked together. They had been dating. And this guy walks in, man, and it's 1979. He's got the trench coat, the 3-piece suit, the double Windsor knot tie, handlebar mustache, feathered hair, briefcase, no iPads. And the first thing I asked this guy when he walks in, I said, "Are you going to be my dad?"
no.
Yeah, I mean,
that's powerful, man.
I know. He's probably like, I'm here for dinner. I'm just here for dinner, kid. Take it easy. But about a year later, they did get married.
Oh, wow.
And he was ex-military. I was in the wedding. Really nice guy. Like, if anybody asked about him, like, they're like, oh, he's just such a polite, great guy. And he was. He taught me a lot about manners. Very nice until he drank. And then when he drank very heavily. And when he drank heavily, he got pretty darn violent. So it wasn't uncommon, you know, to be hit, to be pushed, to be punched. My mom and him would go at it. Cops were called at our house pretty often. It was pretty crazy. And every year that they were married, because they were married for 5 years, they got divorced when I was 10, it just got progressively worse and worse and worse. And I'll never forget when they got divorced. And I was kind of devastated, but at the same time, I was like relieved. I was like, man, there's no more craziness that's going to happen. And I haven't seen him since. In fact, I found out about 7 years ago he passed away.
Oh, man.
And it was because I got served papers. Like, this lady came to my door and she's like, are you Larry Hagner? And I said, yeah. Well, she's like, you're the only heir of Joe Hagner. So you have this house.
Oh,
and
wow.
it was just this, I mean, he lived in like this horrible neighborhood and the house wasn't worth anything. I just turned it over to the city.
Wow.
But anyway, Fast forward 2 years later, I was 12. I had never met my biological father, and I won't get into the details just for sake of time, but I ran into him. Like,
Larry, you flew all the way here from St. Louis, buddy. We got as much time as you need, pal.
This is true.
Yeah, so it was kind of weird. I knew his name, and because he has the same name I do, and that was all I knew. And his wife was coming up to this rec center that I was playing basketball at to pay for ice time because he was a hockey player at the time. He just played for fun. And I heard the guy behind the desk say, "Here comes Mrs. Boyd." And I was like, that's kind of weird. That's not a very common name. I was like, what's her husband's name? I'm 12. And he's like, Larry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's probably my father. So I went up to this lady, just random 12-year-old kid. I just go up to this lady. I was like, who are you married to? And she's like, looks at me and she tells me, and I was like, I think he's my dad. Oh. And she just looked at me like, are you Larry? And dude, like both of us, I think, turned pale white.
Oh, wow.
And she was very kind. And she goes, would you like to talk to him? And I was like, I would love to. So we go around the corner. There's a payphone, puts quarter in, and she's like, yeah, your son's here. He'd like to talk to you. She hands me the phone, and I hear his voice. I mean, it's something about being 12. You've never met your biological father. You hear his voice on the other end. He was very humbled. I could tell, like, it was a lot. And he's like, well, yeah, how are you? Like, how's your life? You know, he didn't know what to say.
Right.
So then we hung out for like 6 months.
How many 12-year-olds would take advantage of that situation and have the maturity and the wherewithal to make that call? That's crazy, man. You're not built like the average 12-year-old.
I think I was just very curious, like so curious. And plus, like 2 years went by.
Frankie was very curious when he was 13, but completely, it's a whole nother subject we'll talk about later.
Roger's built like a 12-year-old.
This guy ran 8 miles in the middle of the night when he was 13 to meet a girl and lose his virginity. Yeah. That's a true story.
It
Yeah.
sounds worth it.
Yeah.
I'd run 8 miles, like I was a fat kid, so I'd probably have to walk it.
Were you?
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. Go back.
No, that's all right. So we had this relationship. He had a 2-year-old son, another one on the way, and we had like this relationship for a while. And the best way I can describe it was it started great, and then it was probably like, 2 months before it sort of ended. I could just tell something was straining him. I mean, you guys, if you ever dated a girl and you knew, like, she's not into me anymore, I just feel it.
It's happened to Frankie a lot, yeah.
But, like, I could just tell, like, he was kind of, like, pulling the fade away, or, like, something was really heavy on his heart or something. Mm-hmm. And I don't exactly remember how the last conversation went for us, but I know it just went something like, this is a difficult time for me, and this is hard, and it's very complicated. And I don't remember really what was said. I just remember that was it. Mm-hmm. And we went our separate ways. And that was devastating. And, I kind of gave up, I think, at that point. Like, I was in 8th grade the next year. I failed 8th grade. I got all Fs. I gained a lot of weight. My mom continued to date. She got married again when I was about 17. I'll fast forward till I was 30. I'm in a Starbucks in St. Louis. I'm in my first job second job out of college, and I'm sitting there for a business meeting, and who comes walking in for his morning coffee but my father.
I saw that.
And I hadn't seen him in 18 years. And I was sitting there with a coworker, and I was like, you'll never guess who just walked in. She's like, who? And I was like, see that guy over there? That's my father.
He didn't see you?
No.
Wow.
And she's like the one, like, your real dad, and like the 12-year-old thing? And I was like, yeah, that's him. She's like, what are you going to say? And I was like, nothing. Like, there's nothing to say. I'm 30 years old. I'm married. What am I going to go say to him? Mm-hmm. She didn't even blink an eye. She just got up and walked right over to him. And I was like, oh my God, like what is she doing? And I'm sitting there, and I see the two of them talking, and I could read his lips, and I saw him say, where is he? And he started looking around. And then our eyes met, and I was just like,
man, did she kind of overstep her boundaries there a little, do you think, or no? Were you guys that close?
She was a good friend of mine.
Okay.
We worked together. She was one of those. I didn't really talk about my dad and that experience very often, but like I was friends with her. Like my wife and I were friends with her.
That's
and her
an
husband.
Extremely personal situation, and she just kind of took. I don't know how well you knew each other. We
knew each other well. That was part of her personality.
Okay.
She was just like, okay, boom, we're going.
Wow.
And I just sat there, and he just like got up, came over, we talked, and I wasn't nice, but I wasn't pleasant. I was just kind of indifferent. And he's like, we should get together for breakfast sometime. And I was like, well, here's my card. If you want to get together, okay, but you don't have to, like, let's do lunch, you know? And I think it was probably 2 or 3 hours, and I got this huge email, like, just, I've always regretted not being a part of your life, on and on and on. And so we got together. Here we are 15 years later. And I know you asked about the Good Dad Project, but, like, my childhood was crazy. I won't get into all the details of all the marriages and the toxic men. My mom always was with a man who was a big drinker. He was abusive. The only thing that changed was the guy's face and name. They just kept coming through. So when I became a father, I was like, I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to have a great marriage. I'm going to be a great dad. And I wasted 6 years doing it completely wrong. I was really into my career. I was into fitness. I was into my hobbies. And I kind of was like, yeah, I'm not so good at that. And I'll just kind of keep that over here. Like, maybe on paper at a 30,000 foot view, it looked like I was doing okay, but I wasn't. And my 4-year-old, who's now 13, stepped out of line one night, and I spanked him. And I spanked him so hard he hit the ground. And I'm not the type of dad who hits or spanks. It was a moment of just lost my patience. He hit the ground, and I went to pick. I was like, oh crap! And I go to pick him up, and he looked at me like I was a monster. And I was like, oh my God. And I didn't see my son. I saw myself. And I was like, holy crap. Exactly what I'm setting out to do. Yep. I'm doing the opposite. Yep. So I went in my office, and you asked where Good Dad Project came from. I'm in my office, and I do what every adult does when they have a bad moment. I go out on Facebook. Because, that's what we do. Right? Get on Facebook.
Validation.
Yeah. So I get on Facebook, and I'm just scrolling. I'm emotional. I'm like, I can't believe I did that. And I see this button that said create a page. And I hit that button, and I don't know what it was. Just Good Dad Project came out. I was the project. I was the Good Dad Project. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm sick and tired of not knowing what to do. And if I'm going to change the pattern and change how I was raised, I got to figure this out. So I was just like, I'll just post things here. I'll learn something new every day. I didn't do it for a following. I didn't do it for anything other than, like, I'm just going to learn something and post it here. That turned into a blog. 2015 turned into a podcast, a book, and then now 6 years later, and it's Dad Edge. It's been Dad Edge now for 3 years, but that's how it all started. It started with a really bad moment.
That's It's sometimes pivotal moments like that can go either way. I'm so happy that it went this way.
Thanks.
Sometimes that can be the start of a downward spiral, and a learned behavior, and I mean that happens often. So.
Well, it's like they say the dad that has, or the kid that has a dad has two sons. One drinks, one doesn't drink. Why do you drink? Well,
right.
My dad does. Why do you drink? Well, I don't want to be like my dad.
Right.
You kind of. I mean, my parents got divorced, and my real dad was a drinker, and so I kind of had that story too. But my mother remarried a good dude, and he became a big part of my life as a father figure. But I've definitely had some of those stories as well.
Yeah, I mean, I look back on all that though, and I'm sure you guys do too. I honestly think that for the most part, I think parents do the best they can with what they have,
right?
And they just, they try their hardest. And I think unfortunately sometimes demons get the best of us, mm-hmm. and we do things that we don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And I think if you can just learn a thing or two about patience and communication and connection and not being in your own way, that's another big one, right? Because sometimes the enemy that beats us up the most is the one that's between our two ears,
Yeah, I think the will to recognize your mistakes has to be there, and admit, hey, I did this wrong, and the want and the will to learn how to do things better, because there's no perfect parent, right? There's no, it doesn't exist. That's a utopia that just literally does not exist. We do the best we can. Most of us do, and we all make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time as a dad, but I definitely have the want to do better. Yeah. And I think if that's there, we can all learn and grow. And as I said before, there's not a lot of places you can go that are dedicated to it. I think in I don't want to paint with a broad stroke here, but a lot of times dads don't get a fair shake, and how pivotal and important their role is in a child's life, So that's good that some dads have a place to go now and turn to and look at and maybe get some perspective or some advice that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise, at the Good Dad Project,
Yeah, man. I mean, we're just we're a huge group of imperfect knuckleheads, but we're hungry.
Right.
I think that's the biggest difference is if you're hungry to do things differently, hungry to do things better, and you're willing to learn. Like one thing, I mean, I know you guys can probably relate to this, but like every guy, every conversation, good, fine, busy.
Yeah.
Like no one wants to talk about like some of the things they're going through. No one wants to talk about like, man, I lost my crap on my kids the other night. Like my wife and I haven't had sex in 3 months. Like we're not really talking. We're not really dating. Like work is stressing me out. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm good. Yeah. I'm busy though. Like that's like the answers for everything.
Well, it's awkward to answer, especially most people that ask, how are you? How you been? I haven't seen you. It's in passing. And how much time do you really, you're walking in a Wawa, somebody is walking out and most people bullshit. You don't have time to really be like, well, listen, I just went through a horrible situation, or somebody in my family is sick, or I got late. So you're right. Most people just say, oh, doing great, doing great. They just give the standard answer. And
Roger's not gonna be like, fucking my ED is just killing me.
The next sponsor is.
We talk about that on here, buddy.
Yeah.
You've been helping me with it.
Yeah.
Is that how he got the black eye?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, guys, guys are. They just don't want to share their feelings and stuff like that. But I mean, no one is. It's women have each other and they have the talk shows and all this, dudes. It's good to bro talk. That's kind of what we do down here.
We do.
Have our
we
bro
really
talks.
Yeah.
And it's good to kind of just get it out a little bit. But you obviously focusing on being a dad and that aspect, I think, is big for a lot of kids, a lot of dudes out there.
We were both guests on your show, and I know you dug into our lives. Let's dig into your life a little bit. You're a dad of 4 boys.
Last time I counted.
Yeah.
Could be more.
I think ages from 4 to 14, am I?
Yeah, well, the one just turned 5.
Okay.
And the other one will be 15 at the end of this month.
Wow.
The end of March, so yeah.
And as we talked about a little bit in our interview when I was on your show, 3 of the 4 have special needs. And we didn't, I wasn't interviewing on that. Is that anything? I mean, you asked me, obviously my son, Grayson, obviously has an autism diagnosis, and we got into that a little bit. You want to talk about, your boys and what's going on there and how you deal with their special needs?
We just hit them.
Yeah.
Well, no, it started with my oldest, and when it's your oldest, and especially for a while when it's your only, you're like, oh my gosh, like what is this kid's life gonna look like? And so my oldest, he's gonna be 15, and he did not walk or crawl until he was 2. Yeah. So we were like really worried about him, and he wouldn't eat. So like we're like, what is going on? And we took him to the neurologist, and they're like, oh well, he might have this and cystic fibrosis and all this other stuff, all these words and these things that you just scare the crap out of you. And then like one was like, yeah, he's really kind of on the autism spectrum. Like he's really not interacting. He doesn't have a whole lot of physicality to him. He's not walking. He can't hold himself up. So at 2 years old, we had to get him occupational therapy. We had to get him physical therapy, and we had to get him, he had texture issues with certain foods. That's why he wasn't eating. So we didn't know that. So 1.5 years of just therapy after therapy after therapy, he really started to come around. He fast forward now till he's 15. He's really come a long way. He isn't the most athletic kid, but he is an incredible musician. Like he'll watch a YouTube video and then just he can play his electric guitar. I'm like, who are you? Like that is crazy. Awesome, he's running track now, which is great. And he's really into fitness now and working out. He still has an IEP, which is that individual education program. So like for like math and reading and some of the things he has like more smaller group classes. But he's thriving. And I think part of the reason he's thriving was because we did intervention early on. That's
key. It's so crucial. I don't think people understand that enough, but from a dad that's been there and lived through it, also another dad over here, early intervention's key. And I will give Grayson's mom a lot of credit for doing that. I think dads, my attitude kind of at the time was, he'll be fine. He's going to grow into it. He's a late bloomer, and so I truth be told, I got to give Mom credit for that. She's the one that wanted to bring him in. So
you know what's cool about that though is she might have started it, right, and she'll still support it, but it's you and I have talked, and you're so on board with that, and you're going to just continue to support him. One of the coolest things that I took from, which by the way, your show, this week as we're recording, your show launched, and I love the fact that you don't label him. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, like when we were going through that early on, like my stepmom, she's very keyed into parenting, that kind of thing. And when we were going through stuff like that with my oldest, she's like, be very careful of labels. Like,
remember
don't,
you said that,
yeah. And that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't label them, and I love how you treat Grayson like, no, he's my son.
Isn't it funny though, to a degree, that if you don't label, you sort of get labeled. I get labeled as a dad because I don't label my son as a denial dad, which I am not. My son has a autism diagnosis. I was there every time he went, for all his meetings with Children's Specialized Hospital. I was there for every one of them. So I was part of his diagnosis. I was there for it. I'm not in denial. I just don't see the benefit of labeling him. Therefore, I don't. You'll never see me post the word autism. You'll never see me, but I'm not a denial dad. He has an he has a diagnosis of autism. Whatever I can do to make that, to help him, and what I'll go to the ends of the earth to do that. But I don't need to advertise it or walk around and tell everybody or use it as a crutch or, to get him preferential treatment. I feel, this is just my feeling, and this, again, not a broad stroke of the brush because everybody's different. As we all know, the autism spectrum is huge. It's humongous. So different applications for different children, of course. But for me, I think the best thing that I do with him is to treat him exactly like I treat a sister. There's nothing I wouldn't do with either one of them. I do the exact same thing with both of them, and I'll continue to do that,
I think that's the best thing you can do. Yeah. I mean, it's because at the end of the day, they are still human. They're still a kid. They have something that is challenging them, right? Correct. Something just different. But, we can provide support, resources, all kinds of things, that will help them along. My 13-year-old, he deals with anxiety, which if you look at him like on the outside, makes good grades, great looking kid, super strong, built, plays football, but he deals with some anxiety demons, right? And so do I. Yeah. He probably gets that from me.
Same. Me too.
Yeah. And then now my 7-year-old just got a recent diagnosis for Tourette's. He has tics. So he'll sit there and he does this, like with his hands, and like kind of like always jerks. And so we're trying to get him some early intervention. And I'm glad we're starting early because they're like, yeah, we really don't deal with this until they're like 8. So I've been researching, and like when I see him do it, I'll just kind of like rub his back, and I'm like, hey, let's do some deep breathing. And he'll just kind of close his eyes and be like, and it'll just kind of subside for a minute. So I'm just trying to teach him awareness. Yeah. And I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or not.
None of us do. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah.
But it works.
Yeah.
It's bringing him awareness, and it's calming him down, and he's able to self-soothe without it getting out of control.
I'm reading a book about Breathe by I think James Nestor, maybe. Breathing could fix a lot of things. You should check that book out.
Yeah.
I mean, for all of us.
Yeah.
Right. And but yeah, I mean, just for that application, I'm sure it could be beneficial.
Big part of meditation, right? I mean, breathing is
but like this guy broke down breathing pretty crazy. Like, we should be breathing through our nose and stuff.
Was it the Wim Hof?
Yeah, he's another breathe guy. Yeah, but this guy, like, he studied Wim Hof. He studied a bunch of people. It's pretty interesting stuff.
I think Jim Nestor is the same guy who works with Mark Divine with Unbeatable Mind. Like, he does the box breathing and all that.
Box breathing. Yeah, probably. Yep.
So we went to one of Mark's retreats, and he was one of the speakers, and he talked about the importance of breath control and breathing and activating the parasympathetic nervous system, if I can only talk. Right. The rest and digest and calming yourself down.
The vagus nerve, right? Is that part of it? Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll teach this someday.
I just think we live in a society that is so adapted to putting your kids on medication, and we really need to get away from that. I mean, there's Diet can control so much. Breathing is another wonderful treatment for things like anxiety and things like that. I mean, there's so much you can do. Your body is a powerful tool, right? Like, it can do so much. You just have to find the avenues to go down to release these things. But today they're just like, well, ADD, put them on Ritalin, you know, and it's a horrible thing, man, you know.
It is. My oldest was on Focalin, which is for ADHD, and they thought that would help him with his IEP, and that's a lot of acronyms as I say that. Yeah. But we took him off that. And the funny thing is he did better without it. We focused more on trying to teach him how we bring awareness to how he learns, because he learns differently. And then the same thing with my 13-year-old. We fought it for a long time. We put him in counseling. He was in counseling for a year, and the counselor was like, look, you know, he really could use some medication. And if I'm his dad, I would put him on Zoloft. And I'm like, that's crazy. And we fought that for about a good 6 months. And then we were like, okay, let's try this. And that actually made him worse. And every time we went in there, we're like, it's not really helping. Like, it's like these symptoms are actually, and then they would just up the dose. Yeah. And then, I don't know, do you guys know who Dr. Daniel Amen is?
I do not. No.
He wrote the book, Change Your Life, Change Your Brain.
I think I heard the book.
He came on as a guest, and after we were done with the interview, I was like, hey, do you have a minute? And I told him about Mason. He's like, well, first of all, I would never put an 11-year-old on Zoloft.
Right.
He's like, bring him in. You know, we'll take a look at him. He's like, he doesn't have depression. He has anxiety.
Yeah.
He shouldn't even be on this. It's making his symptoms worse. So they took him off that, and now he's on a supplement. He's doing great.
Good. Great.
So, yeah, but it's
my personal experience with being on medication, heavy meds. Went through, you know, no secret. Went through a shitty divorce and went on some heavy antidepressants, and I have nothing good to say about it. It didn't help me in any meaningful, other than being like a horse tranquilizer and maybe knocking me out so I got a few hours of sleep at night because I wasn't sleeping. Other than that, there was no benefit, and I came off it cold turkey, which we've talked about on the show. It's not I don't recommend doing that either. But I am not a medication guy, you know.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah,
I don't like it either. So, but yeah.
Yep. Exercise too.
I agree. Yeah,
that's a big thing.
In this crazy world we live in, they were, you know, shutting essentially. I mean, you know, things are kind of opening up now, but I mean, for a long period of time, it was hard to exercise. Frankie's going to correct me and say, you can do pull-ups, you can go run, which is true. But gyms were down, which is where most people go get their exercise, you know, and it's crazy, you know, and it just added, I'm sure, dynamically to depression and anxiety and suicide rates, and it was incredibly sad. You know, things, like I said, are starting to open up more and more, and I think, you know, hopefully we can resume some semblance of a normal life again. But you know, I think that starts with things like exercising and you know.
Well, that's like Tino. He's definitely got ADHD, 100%.
But it works to his benefit in many ways.
Because he's an animal,
right?
You know, he's into things, but like days he doesn't wrestle, I'm like, dude, you got to go run a treadmill or something. Just because it's too much. Like I'm that way too. I'm like him. Like sometimes when no one's home and I'm at energy, I'll start yelling, singing. And I hear him doing it. I'm like, damn. You know? That's what it sounds like.
But again, the pro to that is he's an absolute killer on the you know, when he's on the wrestling mat. So you just have to harness it. You have to figure out a way to harness it, you know?
Right.
Well, you know, the other thing too is I think a lot of guys out there think that your fitness and your family is two separate worlds. Mm-hmm. And I work out with my kids. Yeah. I mean, I still work out without them. I start my day every morning at 4 a.m.
I saw your regiment. I was like, Jesus, this
4:05.
I was like, is he bullshitting? Does he really get up at 4 o'clock? That's crazy, bro.
I do, because if I don't pick up my workout partner by 4:25, I can't.
I'll give you a lot of props. I'm not a morning workout guy. I did it for a bit. I think I did it when my kids were really young because I could come right home from work and I could help with them. I was going at like when they were still sleeping. I would get to the gym at like 5 a.m. and it was miserable. I do not like working out early, but I did it for a while. Give you a lot of props, man. You're going a full hour earlier than I was. So
you know, I like it though. It's the scary thing, but my kids on the weekends though, and at least one day during the week, will go and do some sort of fitness related activity. So Saturdays and Sundays, I'll usually work out with we call them the bigs and the littles. I'll work out with the bigs. And then one day during the week, like when they get home from school, we'll go run on the track. But like 3 times a week, you know, I'm getting active with them, which is a lot of fun. And now even my 7-year-old, it's hilarious. He's like, when can we work out? And we'll grab like mom's like little pig dumbbells and we'll get in the garage for a minute.
That's awesome.
You know, so things like that. But I think you can, and you're right, it's a huge stress reliever for kids and mental health. I mean, for them, when I see them active, and they actually work out at a gym that caters more to their age. It's an F45 gym.
Yep.
That they go to class like twice a week, and their mental health, when they get done with that, they could have the worst day and they come home and they're like, oh man, I feel so much better. I'm tired.
That's truly why I work out more so than muscles. You know, I mean, listen, when I was in my late 20s and 30, I was trying to get muscles to go out to the club. Now I like I wouldn't call it a euphoric feeling.
Yeah,
the good
sure.
feeling. It's euphoric, I guess, to a degree.
Your
that I
body's
feel
releasing a cannabinoid.
when I leave,
you know that?
I feel accomplished when I leave the gym. You know, even though it might be a battle to open that door and get in there, when I leave, I'm like, I did something. I did something that maybe most people don't do, and it's benefiting, my physical health and my emotion.
Towel down, George. That's it.
See,
what does
add
that
that highlight reel. Put that on the highlight reel. Our video editor is making a highlight reel of all Frankie's insults to me, and it is long and it is vast.
You heard Tino. Tino.
Yeah, Tino. His son roasted me. His friggin' son was roasting me.
What did he say?
7-year-old.
What'd you say? Oh, he said all the jokes are either I'm gay or I'm old. Tino goes, so you're both.
How old is he? 7?
10. He's
10.
10.
Yeah, he nailed me. He nailed me.
Oh, that's
before,
good.
He got me.
He's gonna be fiery.
Yeah. He's already pissed with that one.
Yeah.
My daughter too. All of them.
Isn't it crazy how you can have? I mean, I see it with Frankie's family. You probably see it with mine a little bit. You can have, two. I have 2 children. You have 4. You have 3. So we're all, so diversity here. Raised in the exact same house by the same parents, and their personalities are polar opposites. It's crazy. It's great. My sister and I.
Yeah.
I only have one sibling, but growing up, we were polar opposites in every way. And you're raised by the same parents. It's not like different rules applied for my sister than applied. It was the same standard rules, but it's just your genetic build.
Yeah.
You're just different, and
right.
that's part of the complexity and the challenge of being a parent. Is this kid is not going to be an exact duplicate of this kid. They're going to be different problems, different emotional issues, different scenarios you're going to come across, completely different, and keeps you on your toes for sure.
It does. It's a fascinating topic too. Is like how you go about guiding them, parenting them, just a little bit different depending on their personality.
Correct, yeah.
So like, I'm sure like you've got 3, so you probably go about each one of them just a little bit differently.
You got to do them a little different. I mean, sometimes you have to still reign the same way though too. Certain things they'll be like, oh, why do you do this with that one? I'm like, all right. So you got to kind of keep it fair, but you got to approach it differently with each one for sure.
Do. Yeah.
My oldest is definitely different than my middle. My daughter is kind of a combination of them both. So.
What do you find, Larry, is your biggest like daily struggle with being a dad? Like, is there anything in particular that is something that you literally have to deal with every day that might be a little bit of a struggle for you with just fatherhood in general?
How much time we got?
Yeah,
I got a laundry list. So I'm really big with my morning routine. If I don't do that, I'm usually I don't show up the same way. So I would say a big struggle for me, especially with the COVID thing, like, man, it's like when you're on a podcast and you're, talking to a guest or you're facilitating a mastermind or you're on a coaching call helping out another guy and your kid comes in, you're in the office and you're like, hey man, not right now. I'm trying to help this dude out and I need to deal with you later. It's like the biggest imposter syndrome thing in the world, right? Or like I launched a course on creating more patience, like how to help men like actually sharpen the skill of being more patient with their kids. And the week that I launched that, I was blowing up every night. I'm like, I am such an imposter. But I would say, so dinner time, that's a big time of day for me because usually what I've done all day is I've been up since 4. I've poured into everybody else a lot of energy into the podcast or coaching men, or we've got almost 600 guys in our mastermind. And when I get to dinner, I'm like, okay, I want a peaceful, awesome, everybody's happy
Right.
meal. Like that's when I go in with that expectation, I set myself up for disaster.
So funny you said that.
Yeah. I mean, because the reality is my dinner table is a shit show. If my kids show up with pants, it's a good night. Yeah. I mean, like there is chaos that ensues. And here's the thing, like the other night I was talking about this on a podcast. The other night I was getting annoyed and I was like, oh my God, I just want peace. I just want everybody. I don't want to hear fighting. And I just closed my eyes and I was like, I have a choice right now. I can either appreciate the fact that I can hear all of their voices, and I can appreciate the fact that I hear little voices over here, and I hear ones that are kind of going through puberty and their voices are cracking over here, because in 15 years of this house is going to be quiet.
Yeah.
It is going to be silent, and silence is loud.
Yeah, it is.
And so I can either appreciate this or I can just sit here and be annoyed. But the choice is mine, and that is my struggle sometimes, is like, this is happening, it's making me mad. I'm like, no, I'm making me mad.
Right.
Like, I need to choose what lens I'm looking through. So that's a huge struggle for me sometimes. It
just happened to me. It's funny you said that. When you sort of set yourself up for the perfect day with your kids, it's never going to be that way. You know, I did it Wednesday. I worked, obviously. I work a normal job, and I had to meet their mom and my daughter at cheer school, which is in Freehold. You know, it's a little bit of a ride. It's like a 45-minute ride, but I had it all planned out in my head. And it was an overnight for me. It was a Wednesday overnight for me. So I had it all planned out. I was like, okay, I'm going to go there. I'll be there at 5:30. We're not allowed in, but it was a competition, so you were allowed in for like the last 20 minutes. My girlfriend, Danielle, was going to meet me there. She had a client up north, but she was going to get out just in time. The timing was going to be perfect, where she was going to meet me there. We were going to get to check the competition out. You know, I was just going to hang out with my son in the car, maybe get a bite to eat before, because she's there for 2 hours. Danielle was meeting me. Then we were going to go home. I was going to get him bass. We were going to pick up food on the way home, pick up some sushi, and, you know, I was going to get Grayson chicken tenders. He loves chicken tenders and stuff, and get him bathed. And then I was going to read him a book. And they like their iPad. So I always say, you know, if it's not too late, you can watch it for 15 minutes. So I had it all laid out. It was like the perfect night. And the reason I wanted it laid out perfectly is because now they're going to be with their mother. They're going away. They're going on a trip. And I'm not going to see them for over a week, which kills me. You know, so I was like, I'll make it the most epic, perfect night. We'll read a book, we'll snuggle, or, you know, and the fucking wheels fell off, man. The wheels just fucking fell off. So I got them in the tub, and they were all excited, and they're running around, and then, you know, I got the book picked out. You know, we got a stack of books, a book I hadn't read, got it all picked out. They're kind of playing a little bit. They got out of the tub. I got them in their PJs. I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, all right, Melania has school tomorrow. Got to be in bed by a certain time, but still time to give them their 15 minutes. Plus, I'll read the book first, so, you know, they get some educational stuff. And, you know, I feel like I'm fulfilling my role. They're learning a little bit and stuff. And like and then they were playing, and they ran into the bedroom, and I heard Melania. I'm folding laundry. I heard the hair still wet from the tub, so I hear Melania blocking the door and telling Grayson that he's got to tell her the secret password for her to let him out. Well, he just fucking welts her with the iPad. He just fucking smashes her. So then, and I don't tolerate that. Like, you know what I mean? So then I'm like, so then I rip the door open. I go in. I rip the book out of her hand. I grab the iPad out of her hand, and I said, now you go to bed with no book and no iPad. And I still feel like, because that's how my mom ruled. You know what I mean? My mom ruled with an iron fist, and my mom was a good mom. You know, I still feel like it was the right thing to do, but I couldn't help but to feel this guilt, like, shit, there goes my perfect night that I had planned. It was going to be the perfect night. Now both kids are crying. I'm laying in bed between two kids that are hysterically crying. They didn't get to read the book. They're going to wake up mad at daddy. Like, I was like, fuck. And then I just felt guilty, you know? Yeah. And then it almost got worse today. Like, I worked all day today. I went to get a haircut, obviously, after work. And OJ, Pedro, is telling me, do you remember OJ that used to be his manager? OJ he's on hospice care. He's 35 years old.
What?
OJ is he's on hospice care. He has, and I actually had Pedro text it to me because I knew I was never going to remember the name of it. He has something called
I think he just posted some recent
AVM. It's called AVM. Never knew he had it. Had a stroke because of it. Had a blood clot. Had a stroke. Anyway, went to the hospital. Spent 9 months in the hospital at Jersey Shore. 9 months in a hospital bed. They finally get him to go home well enough. He's not doing great. Lost a ton of weight. Finally get him well enough to go home. He's home for less than a week, develops a infection in his blood, and goes right back in. Now he's like on life support essentially. That hit me so hard about time, and I went, sat in the car, got a little choked up, and I recorded myself, sent it to my ex, just telling my kids I love them. I'm like, I hope you have fun with mommy. You know, like I made this video and said, you know, time is precious. I want you guys to know I love you. And you know, it's life is so fragile, and you should realize it more. You know?
Oh, I agree.
Yeah. Bro, he's 35 years old.
No, that's,
and he's the nicest guy
crazy.
Ever. Yeah. He's the nicest
super
guy.
good guy. He's kids too, man.
Yeah, 3 kids, yeah. And Pedro's the godfather to one of his kids. Yeah.
Man, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, very sad. But it like I had, you know, like a moment. I was like, my God, man. Not that I thought I acted poorly, you know, not that I even lost my temper. I think I did the right thing, but I was just like, shit, I can't get that moment back. My perfect night didn't work out the way I would hope my perfect night did, and I just shot him a little quick video, and you know, they know Daddy loves them, and I can't wait to see him again as soon as I get back, you know, and we'll do it again, you know, we'll get the book ready again.
You know what's so cool about that opportunity though is that, like, I joke about it, but I'm serious. Like, I apologize more in my house than I ever thought I would.
Yeah.
And like, so the cool thing about screwing up, like, cause I just had this conversation with my 13-year-old because he and I got into a pretty bad argument over the weekend. He's been doing this thing where he's sneaking his Chromebook into his room and watching TikTok. And we're like, listen, man, no electronics in your room. It just doesn't happen. And he's knowingly breaking the rules right now. And I was so pissed off because this is like the 3rd time in a week. And I'm like, what do you not understand? Like, this is serious, man. Like, look, it's not about watching TikTok on your Chromebook. It's about you sneaking, being dishonest, and then lying about it. That's the problem. Yeah. I was like, and I gave him the lecture on trust, and I blew up at him. And then I did the adult thing where I took all of his brothers to bowling. They all went to go bowling, and I'm like, you're staying here. And he's like, what are you talking about? Dude, it was my idea. Like, I wanted to go. Like, and I'm like, yeah, sorry. Yeah. And there was that part of me that I was like, I wanted him to suffer. Right. Right. And it just pissed me off so much. Then he calls me when I'm on the way to bowling. He's like, Dad, let me explain. I was like, no, you're not explaining anything. And I just yelled and I hung up on him. And he texted me. And this is a 13-year-old kid. And he goes, why would you hang up on me? I would never hang up on you. I just wanted to ask you a question. And I'm like,
hit you hard, didn't it?
I'm like, oh my God. He, in this very moment for a minute, he is the father and I'm acting like a child.
It's crazy.
So I came back home after we went bowling and my wife put him to work. He had chores to do. Like, I mean, he did have to pay consequences. And I went up to him and I hugged him and I'm like, thank you for calling me out. Mm-hmm. Okay. I was like, look, we can both agree that you were not in the right here, right? He was like, yes, I know, I'm sorry. I was like, I am sorry. I was like, I should never have hung up on you. I was very angry. That's not an excuse. I should not have hung up on you. I apologize for yelling at you the way I did because I was pretty pissed off. And I hugged him and I'm like, look, we still need to figure this out, okay? Like, you can't keep doing these things. I was like, but the way I handled it and the way I hung up on you, I'm sorry about that. And here's what I can tell you about having, like, your oldest is 10?
12.
12. So the one thing that's been cool about that is, like, and I would say it's only happened like in the past year, especially my 13-year-old, my 15-year-old, is that they own things pretty darn well. Like, they say they're sorry. You know, they're not like, no, it wasn't my fault. It's so-and-so or this happened. They're like, yeah, I did this. I'm sorry. Mm. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty good ownership. So, like, the cool thing about having a bad moment, I think, as a father is, like, you can give the example of humility and ownership by doing it. Because I don't know how you guys were raised, but, like, mom was never wrong. The guys that she was with, they were never wrong. Even if they were wrong, they're like, well, we're the parents, you're the kid. Yeah. You know, you're wrong, I'm right. We just don't do that. You know, we call it like it is.
Yeah.
So
probably a good way.
No, I think you know, I was always taught as a kid, you respect your elders. I think as a general rule, that's a good, you know, moral code to give your kids. But in my house, my mom was definitely the disciplinarian. Yeah. My dad, you know, my dad said, go talk to your mother, you know, basically. Yeah. So.
Yeah, my patience is definitely then. dealing with this fucking guy every night. No. No, my patience. I definitely have short patience. You know.
Yeah.
But you learn. Like I'm actually better with my daughter than I am my boys.
I noticed that. Yeah, I noticed that. You got a soft spot.
Yeah.
Frankie Edgar has a soft spot. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
But talk about that for a minute.
Well, you know, I mean, I think with the boys, it's you're raising a man. You know, you're trying to raise a man. My daughter and too, like I'm only, like my wife's not the biggest disciplinary, so I feel like I have to be the disciplinary. And then I'm like, I'm the only one yelling at these kids all the time. You know, so my daughter, I'm like, listen, you could. I'm not yelling at her. I'll yell at them. You could yell at her. Now we're gonna have a monster on our hands, probably. But no, you know, she's so much easier, at least at this stage. I hear when they get older, they're a little bit rougher.
Is she 7? Is that right?
She's 6. Yeah.
6. Okay. Yeah. I'm with you on that one. I think like it's easier. I mean, I've got 4 monsters from time to time, and I think it's easier as a father to be harder on them because it's like, hey, we're guys, right?
Yeah.
But like I have 2 nieces, and I'm like, oh my, I was like, I would be in so much trouble.
Yeah.
Like if I had these 2 daughters, like I'd be like, all right, whatever, whatever you want. Like I think that's how I'd be, unfortunately.
But she's not she's easier. She definitely is easier right now, at least. We'll see how it goes.
My daughter is she's older too, but she's 2 years older than her brother. She's 6, but she sasses more. She's got a little bit more of a mouth on her than her brother does. Grayson's he's kind of easier going, but when she looks at me, if I raise my voice at her, it freaking kills me, man. It just kills, because it's just my little girl, you know what I mean? So it kills me. And, you know, I'd love a utopian world where you don't have to yell. But, you know, if my kids are running around doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, and I'm like, hey, guys, knock it off, they don't even slow down.
No.
You know? They don't even look my way. But when I go, yo, knock it off, then they're like, oh, Dad wants us, you know what I mean? So, you know, I'm not advocating yelling, but
it's the bark.
Yeah,
it
gets a little respect, and they're like, oh, we're actually gonna get in trouble if we keep doing this, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I wish there was a way to not yell. I wish that was but my kids would pay me no mind.
Well, I tell my kids, like, I'm like, we were hit with belts.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know, like, and they were like, belts? And I'm like, yeah, belts. Like, would you ever do that to us? Maybe.
I don't remember getting hit by a belt, but my mom spanked our butts and like spanked our butts hard. You know what I mean? I've never spanked my kids, and I'm not saying that's a bad way. I'm not anti. I'm not. You raise your kids how you see fit, but it's just not my way. You know what I mean? It's just not my way. So
I throw so many empty threats at my kids.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna kill you, and nothing ever happens. You know.
Just put them in a hold.
Yeah. Well, the boys I get to wrestle. So like, I'll go to practice and I'll wrestle them.
Yeah.
You know, so like they know the deal. You know.
Yeah.
Can give it to them a little bit.
Now, do your boy? I mean, so seeing what you do professionally, do your boys like? If you get stern, are they like, yep, okay, no problem? Or are they like, it's just Dad?
Yeah, no, I'm just Dad.
I see Tino smirking when you yell. I just see him smirking. I'm like,
he plays. He tries to play. You know, and I'm cool with it. I play with it too. Like, you know, like my dad sometimes, like, he would play and I would play back, and he'd get mad at me for playing back. And I'm like, yo, what's up? You're playing with me. Why? And so when I'm in play mode, I'll let them play. I'll let them insult me, and I'm not gonna come back. But like, if we're not doing play mode, you can't do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
yeah.
Because my dad's, you know, Frank's. I'd be like, I join in. He'd be like, wait,
you want to talk about a scary, intimidating man when he yells? Big Frank, bro. He goes from 0 to like 100, bro. He yells at people, and it's scary.
He's old school. He's he's a plumbing contractor on his own company, and he used to be an animal. I used to work for him. I was in the union as a plumber. You know, early in my fighting career, I guess, and I used to see him get into it with people like crazy. Like, I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to fight this guy.
Did he yell at you like that as a kid?
Oh yeah. What?
Yeah. I'm assuming.
Don't just stop. Don't just stop at work.
I'm assuming, but I met you as an adult, so I'm not gonna see it. You know. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
There's some good ones.
I know this is your show, but I am curious. How did you guys meet?
Mutual friends.
Yeah.
I think we met through Wuzza and Jesse, really, way back in the day, but probably close to 20 years ago now. But I used
to have, girl you dated,
Melissa Cortez, yeah. Yeah, I don't have a bad word to say about Melissa. Melissa's a good egg. But I had a real passion for riding motorcycles. I still do, but 20 years ago was my thing, and I was kind of big into like stunt riding and things like doing crazy tricks on bikes and stuff. And he had a crotch rocket back then. He had a ZX6R? CBR 600. And, I was living in Toms River. We had these mutual friends that knew Frankie Edgar. And, I'd met him out a few times and got a handshake. If he doesn't know you, he's not like, oh, let's hang out. You know what I mean? So I'm like, what's my in with this guy? This guy, well, he started teaching kind of like in a little impromptu MMA class out at the barn. And I was like, I'm in. I'm going in because I was such a fan of MMA in general. I mean, I watched UFC since UFC 1, but to live in the same town as like Frankie Edgar, you know what I mean? So I was like, yeah. So me and a couple buddies would go out there once a week and we'd roll and I had no pedigree or background in fighting at all, but I'd show up every week and we'd do this thing. And I thought it was so cool. I get to train with Frankie Edgar. Well, sometimes I'd show up on my bike and he would show up on his bike. So then we'd leave together and I'm like, now I get a chance to show this guy what I do, right? And so I was like trying to show off, and I had a pretty bad crash right in front of him one day. And ever since that crash, I feel like we've been friends.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I almost ran over him.
Yeah. Because I was showing off a little too much.
He was riding like a 12 o'clock wheelie from Toms River to Jackson, or Jackson to Toms, so from town to town, and drive literally 12 o'clock wheelie the whole time. This guy's too much.
I have no idea how long that is, but it sounds like it was held for a while.
It was in my heyday when I was good, but I was definitely pouring it on. I was pushing the envelope because I was like, no, Frankie's watching this shit. I gotta really like let it go here, you know what I mean? So, but I ended up eating shit and kind of embarrassing myself. But ever since then, we remained friends.
Yeah.
So.
That's cool. That is cool. Yeah. That's a good story too.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I go around him before I could park my bike, get off my bike, and turn around. He's already up trying to pick his bike up.
Dang.
I'm like, what are you doing?
Can you imagine though? And I don't remember specifically. Maybe you do. If he was training then for a fight, but I mean, he was an active fighter back then, so he couldn't have been. Can you imagine if I wiped out and took out Frankie Edgar and he ends up breaking his wrist or when he's? Can you imagine the embarrassment? Like I took out my hero and he can't fight again. Can you imagine? He missed me by inches, man, by inches. So it's crazy.
Oh, that is nuts.
Broke his collarbone, broke his wrist, right?
We probably wouldn't have been friends if I took you out.
I would have sued you.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have got much.
That's a cool story. I was wondering how you guys met, started your friendship.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
The story of the podcast, I'll keep it short because we've told it a couple times on here, but the story of the podcast was, Frankie and his good friend Chris Ligori. I guess they talked about podcasts because podcasts have become very popular, and Frankie's a big fan of podcasts. So I guess they talked about it a little bit, and they were talking about like a good match, like if Frankie was going to do it, who would be a good co-host with him. And somehow my name, I don't know how, got thrown in the mix. And I passed him one day on the road. He called me, and I swear, this is how he said it. He'll disagree, but I swear. He's like, yo, what's up, bro? I just passed you. What are you doing, man? I was like, I'm just working, And he's like, hey, man, you ever thought about doing a podcast? That's how he worded it.
I said, do you listen to podcasts first? He's like, not really. All right. Well, you were thinking about doing one? Probably not.
Yeah, but he never said with him.
Well,
so,
I mean.
So I'm like.
I didn't say, what you
I basically was like, no, man, never thought about it. And that was pretty much the end of the conversation.
I'm like, all right, bro, this guy's a dud.
He's listen, in the ring as a fighter, this guy is the biggest badass go-getter ever. But as far as following up in a lot of ways and other things, he just let it go. And then like a year later, Chris Ligori reaches out to me. He's like, yo, you ever think about doing a podcast with like Frankie? It was like a full year later. I was like, holy shit, that's what he meant when he said you ever thought about doing a podcast? So I reached out, and he's like, hey, man, let's do it. We had a couple interviews with places that we had the possibilities of going and using their studio, and we just wanted the convenience. I live like 2 miles away. We wanted the convenience and the ease and the luxury, if you will, of just coming to Frankie's house and doing it. So we had this room. We came down and checked it out. It literally had a dartboard and, I don't know, a couple pieces of art in here. And we were like, this will work. So we built it,
It does work.
Yeah.
I like it, man. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool story.
Yeah. That's when the romance started.
The bromance. The bromance.
The bromance.
That's why Roger got all the Brotox.
Yeah. He loves to bring that's I think that's insult number 3, the most used. It's gay, old, and that I've had Botox. So, yeah.
There's also an ED joke in there.
Yeah. That one's a little personal though.
Can you stick Brotox in that?
I've heard that people do that to their balls
to make them not wrinkly.
I've heard that.
Not wrinkled balls. It looks so weird.
Apparently, it's big in the gay community. Apparently, which I know that's going to be a joke now. So
boy.
Yeah. Apparently, I've heard that.
Oh boy. So when's your appointment?
Yeah, next week. You want to come?
No.
I'm thinking about that one part in what was it, Big Daddy, where he's like loose skin, old
balls.
Yeah. Adam Sandler, you can't go wrong with any of his movies.
Dude, they're making Happy Gilmore too, I think.
What?
Yeah.
I saw.
Remember he was on the green.
Yeah. No, what's
the Shooter McGavin?
Shooter. I saw Shooter just did a little promo for it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm watching that.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah.
Get in your home.
Your boys into going to movies and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean they like to do a variety of different things. They love the movies. They love hiking. I took my boys on a rite of passage last year. We hiked up a 14er in Colorado.
Oh wow!
And it was awesome. But
even your little one did it?
No. It was the just my 2 oldest ones.
I'm like, you must have been on your back because that's crazy.
Yeah, that'd be hard on me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd make it, but yeah. So we do we do camping, we do hiking, we do fishing. Actually, this past year for COVID, one of the things we did was, I think it was like last year in March when everything hit. We were like kind of like. Everybody was in that like, oh, we're feeling sorry for ourselves. Like the world's going to come to an end. Like, why can't things be the way they were? Like all these things. And my wife and I and all the boys, that we all kind of went through this lull. Like, God, there's just nothing to do. We're all just stuck at home. And my wife and I think it was May of last year, we were having coffee out on the deck, and we were just like, we're asking ourselves the wrong questions. Like, what if we asked different questions? We're faced with a pandemic. It's May of 2020. What if we did this? What if we asked ourselves, how can we connect as a family and do things we've never done because we're faced with things we've never faced, and we can connect in a way we've never connected? What would that look like? And what we did was we created 12 straight weeks. I took off every single Wednesday for 12 weeks, and we would go do something that we've never done or to a place we've never been. So we hiked in places we've never been. We went caving. We went floating. Like we kayaked. We did all kinds of things.
Want me to blow your mind, Frankie? Spelunking.
That's cave.
Yeah.
Cave.
You know it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on, pal.
Jeez, I thought I was going to get some credit there.
Yeah.
No,
but
none.
It was awesome. But we're big into adventure.
It's awesome.
Like, it's not uncommon for us to go fly somewhere as a family, go drive somewhere as a family, go do something we haven't done that just makes us kind of uncomfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've noticed that when we get into patterns in the norm, like everyone kind of just, we get bored.
Yep.
So like
Same.
we're not afraid to try new things.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This guy just got back from 4 days in the Poconos, right?
Yeah.
Skiing.
Yes. Yeah, it was good to get on the mountain. I was great, man. I got probably 10, 15 runs in a day. I haven't done that much snowboarding in the past 10 years. So
now, do you find when your whole family goes and does like a big outing like that, especially 4 days, do you find like the family dynamic flows a little better than it would, like, as Larry said?
Or worse.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, sometimes you get home and it's just like, everyone's at their throat.
Oh, get back to the
I'm
condo,
saying or wherever. I'm saying, we can finally get home and runs out. I'm just like, okay, we need to kind of go in different rooms for a little bit here.
Yeah, on vacations you kind of need to give each other a break sometimes. Yeah.
Well, this was good because her father gets there was a bunch of condos, and so my daughter and my kids will go over there for a little bit, come over here for a little bit. They had, the other neighbors had some kids there, so it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good time. A couple of my buddies came up and skied with me while we were up there, so
That's cool.
yeah, it's good to get out.
We still haven't done that. That's one thing I want to do. We have not skied yet.
Yeah.
I want to ski. Or
Pocono's
snowboard.
not too far for you guys. I mean, you probably go to a better mountain though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just afraid that I'm not the most coordinated dude on the planet.
Yeah.
So like I'll be hugging a tree at some point probably.
Yeah, I mean, I went snowboarding the first time and like when I was 13, got decent, and then didn't go till I was 24 because of wrestling, and then I've probably been like 10 times since then. So like every time I go, I got to reteach myself. But this time I got it down pretty. I was hitting jumps at the end a little bit. You know, I'm
That's
not crazy,
awesome,
but
man.
you know.
There you go.
Yeah.
And your kids, they do it?
Yeah. They both just started snowboarding. My middle guy, he stuck to it because that's kind of his thing, and he was doing black diamonds by the end of the day.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Damn,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Got that low center of gravity when you fall from, especially the eggers, when you fall from 2.5 feet high, you don't get hurt too bad.
He's gonna get another black eye.
Roger's lucky he can breathe in that air all the way up there.
Speaking of breathing, buddy, how's that nose over there?
Good. Good. It's not me.
It's not you?
No.
Oh.
Might be me. No, it's me.
It's definitely Frankie.
My nose is not too good lately.
So what else, buddy? What else you want to tell us about your trip?
My trip was it was cool. You know,
do you are you part of like the setup, or is that all Renee?
No, I don't.
You don't do anything. Yeah.
Like I said, I hate booking appointments. I hate making any like. I'm like, well, let's go to Florida. That's what Renee's kind of like that too. That's just bad because we never plan anything. We do everything.
How about you, Larry? Are you the planner? You part of that, or what? Yeah.
Man,
well, fuck you guys then, because I don't have a wife anymore. So.
I can't plan, man. It's just not my thing. My wife is like a mole when it comes to the internet. She'll find like these gems, like these places that will go, and she always gets good deals and stuff like that. I mean, like, you know, we're going to Florida next month, and then April I'm going to Montana because I've got a speaking event up there, and then in May we're going back to Florida because I'll be speaking an event down there, and we just bring the family with us.
That's great.
Yeah, and then we're in August we're going to be going to Colorado because we're going to be doing another mountain hike. So that's I do plan that stuff, but like the Florida stuff, like I'm good when it comes to like once we're there. Like I'll be like, hey, let's go deep sea fishing.
Yeah.
Or let's go snorkeling somewhere.
Right.
Like I'll find places like that, but like planning a trip and no.
Yeah, I don't plan nothing.
Yeah.
It's like tell me where to be. I'll be there.
I'll show up.
Yeah, no.
You said speaking events. Is that part of the Good Dad Project?
Yeah. I mean, I speak at like just different events. Like, you know, I'll be asked to speak, and so, you know, whether it's on parenting, mindset, big thing is marriage. I mean, I'm that's sort of my sweet spot is marriage, but you know,
only if we could have got you with Roger a year ago.
Where were you 10 years ago? No, I actually did marriage boot camp, man. It was they're good people. That's actually a real thing outside of the TV show, and they help Jim Carroll. I'm drawing a blank on his wife's name. She was terrific. But Jim Carroll, he runs something, I believe it's out of Texas, called Marriage Boot Camp. Obviously, we were part of a TV show, which is completely accentuated and stuff, but it is a real thing. And, I know they've helped a tremendous amount of couples. You ever heard of it?
No. I mean, their track record isn't too good, I guess.
Not the TV show part, pal. Not that part.
I have not heard of that, no. But yeah, man, marriage is – actually, you want to hear a scary statistic? So,
Elizabeth, that's the worst wife's name. She was great.
Okay. So 50%, 50% divorce.
Yes.
Everybody knows that.
Right.
But here's what a lot of people don't know. So the 50% that stay together, they're divided up into 3 camps.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
You do this?
No, but I go ahead. I don't want to cut you off. Yeah.
No, so, 1/3 in camp 1/3 of marriages that stay together can actually identify their relationship as working. Like, hey, this is good.
Yeah.
Like, it's everything I wanted. It's pretty good. Camp 2 is like,
Right.
it's all right. I don't really want to break up. That's a lot of work,
Right.
but it's not really everything I wanted, but we're okay, I guess. Camp 3 is they have no connection whatsoever. And it's literally divided up 33. And
But they stay together.
they stay together for 2 reasons. One is it's the perception of we have to stay together for the kids.
Yep.
And what they usually don't know is that's usually probably doing more damage.
Right.
But then the second reason is finances. So they're usually just waiting for the kids to move out, but they're totally spinning in different orbits, and
Or they're, cheating.
the
extracurricular
extracurricular activities. So yeah, but that's the statistic out there.
It's funny you said that. My numbers are way off. Just something I put together in my own head. But my breakdown, I forget exactly what it was. But you got the 50% statistic that right off the bat is divorce. I mean, that's a guarantee. That's a fact, right? That's a statistic. But somehow I came up with like 10%. It seems like it's around maybe 10, maybe 20% of truly happy people that really met their soulmate. You know what I mean? I think that's a fair number. It's got to be in there somewhere, and that's sad, man. What do you attribute that to?
Well, actually, I have a comparison to being a fighter. So how about that? So think of it this way: in no other area of our lives, as it pertains to marriage and like parenting, right? In no other area of our lives do we expect to be excellent in a certain discipline, field, career, or what, right? So people are walking down the aisle. They say, I do. Everybody's, you're saying your goodbyes. Oh, best time of your whole life. You'll figure it out. Oh, this is great. Don't worry. You'll figure it out the whole time. Dude, and no one understands or takes any type of skill or training in order to create, a legendary, extraordinary marriage. It takes 4 things: self-care, partnership. That's more like the business side of marriage. That's your finances. That's the chores. That's the roles. That's the schedules. That's the not so sexy stuff. Then you got friendship. Then you have lovers. And those 4 pillars, they sit on a foundation of communication. Communication is tactical empathy. It's labels. It's emotional validation. It's active listening. It's all these things, right, to make communication work. And those are all skills. And what most people do is they don't do any of those things, and they view it as like, oh, it's a feeling. And that's a lot like me getting in the ring with you, and I'm like, I'll figure it out.
I know how to make a fist.
Yeah. I mean, it can't be that hard, bro. I'll just figure it out. And then I get pummeled. Yeah. And then, but like, of course, when I go and they're like, dude, like, you got pummeled. Like, what were you thinking? You didn't even train. So in that discipline of being a pro fighter, they're like, well, yeah, you got pummeled. You didn't do anything about it. You didn't learn any skills. Yeah. But in marriage, you're like, wow, I can't believe like it didn't work out. Like, why? But they don't attribute that there are those skills, that now, granted, there are situations where like, maybe the other person isn't pulling their weight. Maybe it's irreconcilable differences, right? There's two complex, dynamic people in the relationship. But at the same time, it's just like a career. It's just like a skill. It's just like a discipline. And unfortunately, most people walk down the aisle a lot like how I would walk into the ring with you, not knowing what to do, but I'll feel my way through it. It'll work out, and I just get killed. Yeah. That's what we do.
You actually, Frankie, gave me some good advice a long time ago, and I'm probably going to screw your quote up a little bit, but we were at Xena. We were out to eat with the girls. They went to eat, and some girl walked by, and she was a good-looking girl. We both just kind of looked up, and I looked at you, and you looked at me, and you said something to the effect of, and again, I'm going to screw this quote up, but the grass may look greener on the other side. But somewhere out there attached to that beautiful girl is a dude with a whole set of problems just like you got. You might as well just stay and work on the problems that you got at home that you already know. I don't know how close I was with that quote, but it
made me sound probably better than it was.
It was something like that, and it made me think. And I was like, yeah, I mean, because we all obviously in the world of social media, especially when everything.
I probably say there's somewhere around the world that's sick of that girl shit.
Yeah,
you know
something to that effect. But especially in the world of social media, everything looks so beautiful and so attractive, and the grass is always greener on the other side. And even I'm not just saying with just girls who are scantily clad or whatever. Relationships, you see guys and they're putting their best stuff out, their best life is out, but you might as well stay. It's a little late for me to say this, but you might as well stay and work on what you already have and what you already know. I mean, that's I think a good way to put it.
Yeah,
you gave me that advice,
yeah,
buddy.
I like that.
And it worked for you, pal.
Listen to it didn't work for you, but
I was half of that equation, bro.
I know. But I mean, there's probably some marriages, like you said, that should be apart. Some people just can't work.
Right.
I was coaching this guy not too long ago, and he's literally given everything he possibly can to this relationship that he's in. And I've never really said this, but I'm like, dude, you got to get out of this, man. Like, this girl, emasculates him, like, talks down to him, disrespects him, doesn't appreciate. I mean, like, literally just talks down to this poor guy. And I'm like, man, like, you can't. Can you go like 15 more years, 20 more, 25, 30 more years like this. Like, I can't even imagine what life would be like. And she will not change. Like, she's refusing to change. And so in that particular situation where it's downright disrespect, no appreciation, and the person will not change, it's probably not the best situation. You know, I mean, you could probably do all your own self-work you possibly can, but the other side is not. Yeah. And that's where, that particular situation might not be best.
Yeah.
There's a time to call it quits now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, not that, I think you have to take every situation for what it's worth. And as long as like when I'm coaching a guy, if we can refine his skill set and help him with his own stuff. Because I always say, like, you're not going to change her. You got to do you, right? And she is not responsible for your happiness. So we got to get that straight, right? But at the same time, you're responsible for knowing how to be a good listener. You're responsible for learning what emotional validation looks like. You're responsible for when she comes to you and vents, you don't solve her problems. You listen, you validate, and if she wants you to get in on the solution, then go ahead and do it. But, a lot of times, man, there's that the biggest crack, I think, in marriage is that communication breakdown.
No question. That's always the thing that I struggle with the most, communication, because I'm stubborn. I'm a stubborn mule, and I stop communicating. I'm not really a screamer, arguer, or it's not really my way. But I just shut down. I'm a light switch, and that's probably almost worse in many ways.
I think a lot of guys we do that though.
Yeah.
I mean, I coach men on this stuff, but when I get to a certain point, that's what I do. Right. And I stop talking. I need that break.
I do.
Almost to be like, all right, I just can't talk about this right now. Like, we got to time out.
If you give me enough space and don't chase me around,
right.
I usually come around. I usually, usually the gravity or the importance of a situation settles in, and I'm like, what are you being so stubborn about? This is the dumbest thing ever. You're you're mad about she said she was going to have dinner on at 6 and she, it's not on it. It's stupid. I don't know that we ever actually had a fight about that, but that was the one thing that popped in my head. And then you're like, my God, you're wasting time, wasting time. And I admit I've wasted an incredible amount of time, but I do realize it, and I do want to get better at it. So, I think that the want is there,
Yeah.
I usually get what I want to say. I get it out.
Yeah.
I get it out. Yeah. And then I come around, then I'm good, then she's not good.
See, I'm the opposite. I don't usually say things that I think I'll regret later, because you can't take it back, And I'm kind of the opposite of my girl. She's the most loyal, best girl ever, but she says the most hard-hitting shit.
Oh, that's Italian. She's Italian, bro.
That's what she says. That's what she says.
That's what it is, bro. That's what I was raised. My mother used to say the worst stuff to me.
She's like, somebody else says that shit about you, though. I'll fucking gut him like a pig,
Exactly.
So, but yeah, she said, and I'm like, and I can't shake it, I'll be like, fuck, did you really mean that? Like, Jesus, And she's like, no, I was mad.
You should be used to me, then. You should be used to me.
What's been the biggest lesson you've learned?
From in marriage?
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is like, it's like you think the worst, like when you have a bad fight, you think like it's the end of the world, but like it moves on. As long as you're in it for the long haul, nothing's gonna break it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you think like something like, we never had serious fights, because what's it's usually we fight. What do we fight over now? We fight over kids or some stupid scheduling or nothing serious, and
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, Mark. And you get so mad in the
Mark
situation.
Wahlberg?
No, this is this guy.
I keep saying when she's gonna leave him for Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. And you think it's you're like, well, oh my God, the end of the world. But then in the long run, I gotta say it ain't nothing.
Yeah.
That's all. It's just gotta roll with the punches in life, I guess.
Right.
Especially in marriage.
Yeah.
Or just like in a wrestling career, he tell a kid, or in a wrestling season, you don't want to get too highs with the highs and too low with the lows. Ride the even keel. That's kind of how marriage is,
It's very true. Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to see that in the moment, but yeah, you're exactly right. Yep. You get inside your own head, and a lot of times you just want to be right, or you just want to win the argument, and it's not the bigger picture stuff.
Yeah.
For me, I take a long time to settle, and I've always been that way since I was a kid. But you give me that time, and I'll come around. I'll see the bigger picture. Just give me a little time. You know,
I'm the exact same way. And luckily, my wife, man, she's not a nagger. Like she's not
Italian then.
She's not. She's German, but she can be stubborn though too.
Yeah.
But she's a tough woman. She's a good mom for 4 boys. That's for sure. But she also knows me really well, and I know her really well, and we can read each other really well. And we know if we're in a heated discussion, like when the other person, like I can sense when she's had enough, and she can definitely sense when and we give each other the space and the respect to just back off, and allow the other person to go do whatever they need to do. And then you're right. I mean, we always come back.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's never really been an instance where we haven't. You know, we always come back and work it out after we're cooled down.
Yeah. How long have you guys been together?
So I met her in college, and I've known her for 25 years. We've been married. This will be 18th year.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, man, it was hilarious. Like, I don't even know how how I landed her, because it was, you guys ever seen the movie Hitch? Yeah. So I saw her.
Will Smith.
Will Smith. Yeah. I saw her all around campus. And luckily, by the time I was in college, I had confidence. I wasn't a fat kid anymore. So I didn't have a problem going up and talking to a girl that I liked. But for some reason, like, I saw her all over campus. I'm like, oh, man, there's that girl. And then all my friends would give me crap. They're like, Hagner, you ever going to go talk to that girl? Like, you know, like it was months. And then finally, like, I got in the elevator of my dorm, and she came in, and this was like in the evening. I was going to the gym, and she got in the elevator. I was like, oh, my God, there's that girl. I'd seen her for months, and didn't say a word to her in the elevator. And she's like, where are you going? And I was like, I'm going to the fitness center. And she's like, I was like, where are you going? She's like, I was going to go for a run. Do you want to come with me? And I hate running. And I was like, I love running. I would love to go run. So we went running, and she smoked me. And she's like, I thought you ran. I was like, I'm just tired. So anyway, we kind of like hung out like for like 3 straight weeks.
That defines so well, by the way, what men will do for a girl. It really does.
Yeah. Totally like want to just hang out with her. And we ended up running together like for the next 3 weeks. And she's the type of girl, she's a hard read. And she was dating somebody, I was dating somebody. It wasn't serious on either end. Like, she was just casually dating, and so was I. And I was like, I can't tell if this girl likes me or not. Like, I could not read the situation. I was like, I'm either in the friend zone or I can't read this girl. And I'll never forget it, man. This is why I asked if you've seen the movie Hitch. So we're sitting on a park bench after we got done with this run, and I was like, this is driving me crazy, man. I have got to make a move on this girl. So we're sitting there, and she is talking. And literally in my mind, I was like, I'm going to kiss her. And I'm going to kiss her in 5, 4. I did a countdown, and I pulled her to me, and I kissed her, and she didn't kiss me back. And I'm like, oh, crap. So then she started laughing, and I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, and then she kisses me, and I'm like, all right, now I'm confused. Like, what's going on here? And she's like, oh my God, you look so funny. And I'm like, this is getting worse. She's like, you just like came in, like your eyes were already closed and everything. So there's that part where Kevin James, like, he goes 90, and she just like looks at him. She's like, oh my God, that's what you look like. That's why I was laughing. I was like, oh my God. So that was the story that was shared by my best man at our wedding. So like, yeah, man, it was the first few weeks we were together. It was just, and we kind of broke up here and there, but we finally got, I mean, we dated for 7 years before we got married.
Wow.
It was a while. I was a slow learner. So
that's great, man.
Yeah.
That's great.
I see you do the hard 75.
Yeah, that's why I'm over there. I'm looking at the Johnny Walker, and I'm like, man, I'm over here with my water. I still got 25 more days to go.
So this is the second time you're doing it?
Third
time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What made you get into it?
I like the rules. I like living like in that kind of container for short amounts of time. I can't do it like long term. Like, yeah, I like going out on date nights and having a couple drinks with my wife, or like with the guys, or when we go out with couples, that kind of thing. But I would say for the most part, like, I try to live within those rules. Like, I drink a gallon of water a day. Mm-hmm. I work out every day. I do read every day, things like that. But I like having the parameters in place. And in our mastermind in Dad Edge, we have, like I said, 550 guys that do life with us. And we will do that challenge as a group every quarter. Like we offer it. So like if I'm in the challenge, like there's no way that I cannot do it. Like I can't tap out. I can't say I quit. So I will do it.
Right, keeps you accountable.
It keeps us accountable. Yeah. I mean, we do the whole thing where we actually like share. We like there will be 80 of us, and we have like a Google link for a Google sheet where we share all the rules. Like everybody has their own tab. Everyone has day 1 through 75, all 6 rules. You have to log every day that you did them. You're paired up with an accountability partner. You have to talk to your accountability partner every day or every other day. Like there are very strict rules, like when in our accountability group. So I'm just like, well, I can't not do it. It's more public. Cool. So yeah, I do that.
Maybe
I should. Yeah. You're gonna be my accountability partner?
I'll definitely hold you accountable.
I've tried. I'll give Frankie some credit. I've tried to broaden my horizons a little bit recently, very recently. I used to be really well read when I was a kid, but I haven't read a book in years. And this guy. No, you remember the Hardy Boy?
Yeah,
mysteries?
Dude.
I read every single.
I used to read them
book.
all the time.
I read every. That's how I learned the term spelunking. Actually, Hardy Boy mystery. But I read every single one when I was a kid. But anyway, long story short, Frankie's, for as dumb as he is, he's remarkably well read.
I'm not that. Just compared to him, I am. Yes.
Compared to me, you're dumb.
To you, not so much, probably.
So anyway, he's really well read, and he's got quite a library up there. So I borrowed a few books, and I started reading one about the history of Tom's River recently. Is the one that I'm on now. It'll probably take me a month, but I'll get through it.
Yeah. I do have a question for you though about fitness. What goes into a camp? Like, what is a typical day when you're getting ready for a fight? Like, what do you have to do every day?
Well, I mean, it depends on what day it is, but usually I have a practice from usually 9 to 11. Usually 9 to 11:30. Come home, I'll eat, shower, relax. Usually go to therapy, either stretch or ART. And then I'll go to my next practice, which is usually 4 to 6. And then I'll come home and eat and chill out. So usually 2 a days.
2 a days.
Yeah. So like say Monday is jiu-jitsu and then strength and conditioning. Tuesdays sparring and then pad work. Wednesdays wrestling, then strength and conditioning. Pad work, then wrestling, then jiu-jitsu and pool work, Saturday sparring. You got,
Is there a day? I mean, for a guy that's been doing this for forever, is there a day that? I mean, for me, when I go to the gym, I like arm day. You know what I mean? I'm not a huge fan of leg day. Obviously, you're gonna say, but is there a day that you look forward to more than others? Is like sparring?
I like sparring.
Yeah,
sparring's the most fun. It's the hardest probably though, but it is the most fun. You get to work on what you've been working on, all week. But it also beats you up the most too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's 8 weeks at a time? Is that right?
I do 8-week camps, sometimes 10-week, but about 8 weeks. But I'm in the gym usually. I took some time after this last one, but I'm usually in the gym anyway.
Yeah.
At least once a day. Sometimes I train twice a day, even without fights.
Now, when you say the gym, is that like actual training and fighting, or just throwing the weights around?
Well, the gym is just martial arts, anything. Working out related, I guess you say.
This guy actually holds. I don't know if you know, Larry, but this guy holds a few records, right? I always thought you said him at Rutgers, but it wasn't at Rutgers. Was it the push up, pull up?
Oh no, it wasn't. I don't know if I hold a record, but we just did like a thing with Miller with Martin Rooney. It was like I forget what it was.
I thought they were records for your weight class.
It was dips, push ups, and pull ups.
You remember what it was?
Dips, push-ups, pull-ups, and bench. I don't know. It's how many you could do in like a minute, and I definitely crushed.
I did like
it. 50 something. I don't know. I crushed it pretty good.
Yeah, I remember. I remember back when you did it.
Yeah.
Now, where did the nickname The Answer come from?
My training partner Chris Ligori gave it to me. It was actually kind of like I was his wrestling coach. He's like, "Oh, you're the answer to help me," because he needed wrestling.
Yeah.
And then it was like, "Yo, I'm the answer. You could bring this. So I got an answer to it." Plus, Allen Iverson. I liked Allen Iverson. Growing up. So
yeah,
the answer. It's kind of sounded good with Edgar.
I like it.
Fit well.
Yep. Do you have another one that you're going to be doing?
Fight?
Mm-hmm.
I'm nothing booked, but I'll probably get in summertime.
Yeah.
I'm looking to do. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Hopefully, sooner or later. I know we were talking earlier, but like it'd be great just to have like fans in stadiums again.
Yeah, I feel like I gotta have that. Gotta have that again.
Yeah,
just doesn't feel right without it.
I can't imagine.
I mean, it's cool. You got to look at it both ways. I can hear my coaches really well. The experience is just different. It's like fighting in the gym. In the gym we're just sparring in front of nobody really anyway. But when the crowd's there, the energy's just you just feed off it.
Yeah.
What's the loudest fight stadium crowd that you can remember you were ever at?
Well, I know the loudest I ever heard is when I was in. I wasn't fighting. I was there cornering somebody. It was cornering Ricardo maybe, but it was George St. Pierre fought for the title in Montreal.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, he was walking out. I'm like, I gotta go out to the main floor. I was in
the
the locker room.
Rogers Center. I
was like, I gotta hear this, and it was deafening.
Wow. Yeah.
But like when I fought, Madison Square Garden was good. They're screaming my name. Even Tokyo was pretty cool, but they're kind of quiet. But they were kind of loud too.
Yeah.
For Tokyo, usually they don't say anything. But I think they kind of got into the whole UFC gig.
How many years you been doing this now?
Professionally fighting 16 now, and I've been in UFC 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
14 years. So, I mean, I remember watching you fight. I know it was in that 2007, 2008 time because, like, at the time I was doing martial arts and a bunch of the guys that we would do martial arts with, somebody would always buy the UFC fight, and then we'd all go over there and hang out and watch the fight. And I remember like seeing a few of your fights even early on, like early on in your career.
It's been a minute.
Yeah. You bought those shoes when you first started fighting.
Yeah. They're my house slippers, bro. This guy's front on my house slippers. This guy's got a zipper. He has a zipper for shoes. He can't tie his shoes anymore. He's got to have zippers.
Is there, as you reflect on 16 years, like, is there a moment that you're like, man, that was like a gold moment, like just that one thing? Like, is there something that comes to mind?
I mean, definitely winning the title is always up there. And then when I fought Maynard the third time and then knocked him out, that was a special one.
Yeah.
And I remember going back to my hotel, and the lobby was packed, and it was just craziness, like movie type stuff. Walking in, people trying to grab me and stuff, and it was nuts.
I'm sure you remember it, but Renee was heavily pregnant at the time. I don't think she was supposed to be flying, according to her doctor. I think she did it anyway, but I waited for you with half of fucking Tom's River when you flew home from
that was wild.
From Dubai, Abu Dhabi.
Yeah,
you fought BJ Penn, you won the title, and literally half the town waited for him in Cole's parking lot. The entire parking lot was full. There was buses, there was fire engines, there was cops, and nobody really knew like when he was going to get there. Because we were people were tracking you. I think Renee's sister was there giving like updates on and then he finally got there. I think you got out for a minute, and then the whole town literally followed you back to your house, the old house you used to live in, and he hung out outside with everybody for hours, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that street you couldn't even drive down it. It was so bad. And I remember thinking like, I didn't know him that well. That was when I was a fan. I was like, this guy's cool as shit, man. I even went up, was like, congratulations, and he was like, thanks, man. But literally, I mean, he shouts out TR every fight, bro. The town loves him. You know what I mean? So I remember that vividly. Sitting in, I sat there for hours in Cole's parking lot waiting for you to get back from the airport. Yeah,
we got held up in immigration.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It took forever.
All right.
Yeah, those were good times. Definitely.
Everywhere you go, I mean, do people recognize you?
For the most part, I'm a little dude, so I can kind of get. If I was big like Roger, he wouldn't notice me, right?
I've been out with him many places, and he gets recognized. No,
you do. But I'm kind of unassuming guy. I don't really look for attention either.
Right.
But I you do. You notice it more and more.
Yeah.
I feel like every fight I have, I come back, I get noticed more.
Right.
And here, it's like everyone knows who I am, so that's like no big deal.
Right.
Grew up here.
Yeah, my camera guy on the way here was like, Do you think anybody would actually rob his house or his neighbor's house knowing that he lives there like that? Probably like
crackheads don't care.
Right.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't care. That happened. We were talking about it. That happened to the light heavyweight guy, Anthony
Smith.
Smith, yes. His house got broken.
He's bigger than this guy probably.
Yeah, well, he's definitely more of a badass than I am. He's 205er, but he's a bad
he's
mother
bigger
effer.
than you.
Well, yeah, I'll fight camp probably. But anyway, he literally fist fought a dude that broke into his house, the crazy part about it is, here's this UFC fighter. I don't know if you've ever seen Anthony Smith fight, But he's a badass, bro. Held the belt for a short period of time, right? No, he didn't?
No.
Oh, okay. Fought for the belt.
Fought John Jones.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Anyway, said, went on air and said it's the most terrified he's ever been. And here's a guy that can.
I don't know if he meant like just because his kids were there.
Right.
I mean, I could see that, but he said he was
Well,
hitting the guy. The guy didn't stop.
Right.
I'm like, dude, that's what you use jiu-jitsu for, bro. Choke that guy. PCP ain't helping that. It ain't helping his blood to his brain. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you, my 7-year-old we just put him in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I wish I could say it was a good reason. Like I did martial arts for years, and my 2 oldest boys, they did martial arts and they did wrestling, and then my 7-year-old, we hadn't gotten him in anything yet, and unfortunately, I won't go into a whole lot of detail just because of privacy of the people that we know, but he was in a situation on Super Bowl Sunday where we were over at somebody's house. All the kids were there. All the adults were there. Adults were upstairs watching the game. Kids were downstairs. And I went downstairs after the game. And this is the one where he's got the tics and all that. So kids are kind of becoming cruel now.
Oh, brutal.
And so I go downstairs to tell the kids it's time to go. And I noticed my 7-year-old just walk right past me. And he looked upset. And I'm like, hey, man, you okay? And he didn't say anything. He just kept walking. And I was like, that's kind of weird. And all of a sudden, he just lost it. And I'm like, what's going on? And he just kept walking. And I looked at the other kids over there. I was like, something happened. And the kids looked guilty as can be and just ran. And I'm like, I don't know what just happened. So then we get home. And I'm kind of putting the kids, getting stuff ready, putting the kids to bed. And I look over at my 7-year-old. He's in the corner staring at the wall. And he's just like this. And I'm like, are you all right? What's wrong? And I look at him, and dude, his eye was swollen, scratches on his face. He had a bruise, a damn near a black eye right here. He had scratches on his neck. He had a bruise on his arm. He had scratches on his back. I'm like, what in God's name happened to you? And he was so upset. He was just he kept just saying over and over, they kept beating me. And I'm like, what do you mean they kept beating you? And he's like, they just kept holding me down, beating me. And then they grabbed my legs, they pushed their foot into my balls, and then they would hit me in the face and they would scratch my back. And I'm like, and this kills me, man. I was like, why didn't you get away? Why didn't you try? He's like, I tried. And they kept just holding me down and beating me more. And I'm like, I was freaking fumed out of my mind. And I'm like,
these are family, friends, kids.
They weren't family, they're friends, kids.
Friends, kids.
And
I meant your family's friends, kids.
Yeah. So and I just I was like, this is crazy. And I asked him, I was like, why didn't you yell for me? He goes, and this is what killed me. He goes, I was.
Oh, wow.
You didn't hear me. And I'm like, and they were downstairs. They were playing in a bounce house.
All right.
And there was probably 9 kids down there. They're all playing. And I heard them screaming, but I was just like, oh, they're having fun.
All right.
He's like, I kept calling for you, didn't come. And I'm like, oh, geez. So I was like, you're going to jiu-jitsu tomorrow. And I enrolled him in jiu-jitsu. And he loves it. He really loves it.
That'll help him a lot, man.
It will. Yeah. And it'll help him with, I've even noticed some of the things, even the occurrence of his tics has kind of calmed down. He's got seems like he has a little bit more physical literacy now.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind body sort of connection. And the other day I picked him up and I'm like, hey man, how was jiu-jitsu? He's like, I learned how to choke somebody out today.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
He's like, Dad, when you get choked, you got to tap twice.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Looking back on my childhood and remembering it, and a lot of people disagree with me on this. They're all like, oh, everything's been around pretty much, same as it was. I wouldn't want to be a kid in today's day and age growing up. I really wouldn't. And that's a dad that has 2 kids that are only 4 and 6. I feel, I don't want to say bad for them because they have a lot of opportunities, but my empathy for them, in a lot of ways is growing, because my childhood, I really remember it as being very simplistic. I mean, I really do. My mom had some basic rules. When you came home from school, or if it was summer break, you went out. Here we go. I'm thinking
of
Go ahead, buddy. Get it out.
Oh my God!
Get it out.
Can't
Everybody,
think
the
of
people want to laugh.
What's the movie? Tropic Thunder. Simple Jack. That was about Roger's upbringing.
It was
Simple Jack.
It was Simple Jack meets Deliverance. Is kind of what it was. But so when the street lights came on, you had to be home. That was if my mom was outside yelling. Because we lived on a quiet little street, Mill Street, in a little town in Maine, so there was like no traffic on it. The kids all would, we played Tin Can Alley. It was just, there was no electronics. I mean, the only electronic game I can even remember, I didn't even have a Sega. I didn't have any of that. I had an Atari, like when it first came out, and played Frogger and Space Invaders, and that was it. And I wasn't even really into that. I was outside. I was playing with friends.
The strings.
Yeah. I was outside every night playing with kids, and that was kind of like the rule in my house. Like you did your chores, you did your homework, and then you went out and you played, and you came home, you took a shower, and went to bed. And kids today, they're so enamored by. I see it with my daughter more so than my son. They have the iPads, and I'm guilty. My kids have iPads. I don't feel like I abuse it, but certainly, and I see what she watches, and she's kind of into makeup now, into that. And she watches these tutorials of kids doing makeup and how glamorized it is and how, they're just subjected to this whole different world that I was not subjected to. And it seems very judgy, very judgmental and sort of classifying kids into different genres of popularity, if you will, and I wouldn't want to be part of that. That's tough, but you can't. This is the world we live in. So unless I move to Alaska and go live in the sticks and shut society out, I think we all are sort of in the same boat. You have to navigate it as best as you can. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, you do. And even if you went to Alaska, you could still play Atari.
Right. I meant going off grid is what I meant. But
yeah. I totally agree. I mean, I don't know how you guys, grew up, but I was, like I said, I was overweight, I was fat, and I was bullied a lot. And the cool thing about coming home was the bullying stopped. Yeah. Like, you were in your house. Now, all you need, I don't know where my phone's at, but all you need is a device.
And follows everywhere, right?
Yeah, you pick that thing up, and people would be like, you suck, you're not popular, you're this, and that doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And you're right about, like, the social media thing. Like, my oldest is 15. He doesn't have an Instagram. He doesn't have a Facebook. And we actually even took Safari off of his phone. So we took Safari off of his phone, and he has a 1 hour screen time on that phone, and everything shuts off. Like, he can't get to any apps. The only thing he can do is text or call someone. That's it. It's basically an iPhone that's a dumb phone. Mm-hmm. That's because you can't go on the internet or anything like that.
Is that because it was becoming a problem, or because you want to be preventative and not let it become a problem?
No, I mean, he was he's a typical boy, and
I gotcha.
He was. We have this software on his phone called Bark, and Bark is a software that runs in the background of all their devices, iPad, iPhone, even their Chromebooks and all that. And what it does is it picks up keywords in their text, email, social media, literally everything. And what it does is it'll detect suicidal ideation, it'll detect adult content, depression, alcohol, cyberbullying, and it'll send me an alert. It'll be like, hey, alert cyberbullying, or alert adult content.
You're sort of, in a weird way, outsmarting technology with technology. Their exposure to technology with technology is kind of crazy,
What do you mean by that? Like, outsmarting?
Well, you're trying to protect him from all the shortfalls of technology, right, and all the bad things it can present, and you're doing that with technology, So it's kind of crazy.
Trying to, yeah. I mean, he was, so I would get alerts that he was, he searching what a typical boy would search, right? And I'd have talks with him like, hey man, like, I'm like, hey, you're normal, it's a normal thing. I was like, but it's probably not we don't want to be spending a whole lot of time doing this, okay? Like, really any. And I would even like have these man-to-man talks with them, like, look, man, like, seeing that on a screen and you're not sexually active yet, like, seeing that on a screen, and then when you go to do the real thing, like, the brain and the physicality doesn't work together. In other words, like, things are not going to perform the way you want them to because your brain gets desensitized by that. I was like, so let's just make an agreement that we have outlets in other ways but not on the phone, okay? And we talked for, like, no kidding around, like an hour and a half about it. Just good man-to-man, no shame, no guilt talk. And we shook on it, and he's like, okay, I won't. Next day, I get an alert. I'm like same search. And I'm like, dude, I was like, come on, man. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. Next day. And so finally I was just like, and I asked him, I was like, listen, what do you think the best course of action is here? Like, what do you think we should do? He's like, I think we should take Safari off my phone.
Wow.
I was like, okay, let's do it then. So it was actually his idea. It wasn't, I mean, I was hoping he was going to say that. But if he's the one who says it, then, and he is stuck to it. He hasn't tried to do anything since.
That's a tough one to control. I'm not there yet. I've got a 4 and a 6-year-old, but it's that, especially with boys, it's that desire that burns within. You know what I mean? That teenagers go through, man. And that's that's a kind of a unique way of dealing with it that I hadn't thought. I don't have to think about it yet. But you got any issues with that yet? You got a 13-year-old?
No, I mean, well, yeah, he's getting there. I can tell his voice changing and stuff. So he's like very, attitude all the time. Like, dude, driving me nuts. But
looking at things you shouldn't be looking at, or you don't know.
I went through a search. I mean, no, she's on top of it more. But I went through a search one time. He's searching dumb stuff. He's still 12. Yeah. But I did see he searched Mia Khalifa once.
Mia Khalifa?
Yeah. I'm like, yo, what's up? What's up with this?
Not a bad choice. I'm going to give him an extra high five on the way out of here today.
My son's search was pretty tame, and it was the same search every time. Big boobs. No, it was beautiful women with big boobs and big butts and bikinis.
He's got a thing for the bees, man.
It was the same search. And Bark will actually show the image that he sees, and I'm like, okay. All right. I was like, you like the bigger girls? I see.
When I was a kid, it was National Geographic. That's how bad it was when I was a kid.
I know, right? Like, we used to joke.
Literally, my grandmother got subscription to National Geographic.
Yeah.
I would spend the night at her house, I don't know, maybe a couple times a month or whatever. I remember she had this very old farmhouse. She had this really cold bedroom over the garage of the house that was, there was a big old Victorian house. There was a number of bedrooms but I stayed into that one because it had the most privacy, and I could sneak National Geographics in there and stare at them. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Dude, National Geographic, bro. Jeez.
That's all my life. That shows my age.
Maine was rough, bro. Damn.
That's the truth, man. That's the truth.
Sound like
Listen,
my buddies.
Titties are titties, bro.
My buddy's dad's like titty magazines. That's what these guys.
They weren't around. If that was around to look at, my grandmother's not going to have that at her house. My grandmother's.
I swear, I feel like
holy roller.
We used to find them in the middle of the woods. I'll tell you, I have this story. Me and my stepbrother, we had to be 10, 11 years old. On a Saturday, went to work with my dad. We're on a job site. He needed our help a little bit. We helped him a little bit, and then he's like, "All right, go ahead. I'm going to finish it up." So we went up to the woods. We're in the woods, messing around. And we come around like a campfire, and we see a bunch of nudie mags. Right? I'm like, oh shit! I'm like, let's take them home. We're folding them up in my pocket. I pull them up, and I put them in my pocket.
In your pocket?
Yeah. I'm like, what am I gonna do with them? In my pocket. Because we're really going home. And I remember, I'm telling my stepbrother, I was definitely my idea. I was probably a bad kid. I'm like, don't say nothing. Shut up. And we're in the car, and he's quiet as hell. We're so quiet. My dad's like, what's up? What'd you guys do? And of course, he found it. It's like, what the hell's wrong with you guys?
Oh, you dived yourself out, or your cousin did?
No, my stepbrother.
Your stepbrother.
Yeah.
Oh,
damn. Shit. Here you go.
Dude, I was probably 12, probably the same age. I used to stay because my mom was like dating at the time, so I would stay at her brother's house, my uncle's, every now and again. And my uncle had all these VHS porn movies. And one night when I was staying over there, I freaking took one. And no matter what I did, I would get caught. So like I had this jean jacket. That's when jean jackets were in. And I stuck this freaking VHS like in my jean jacket. It's like this giant square. She'll never notice. Like I walk in my house, my mom's like, "What is in your pocket?"
Yeah.
Like, nothing. It's a book. Like, she's like, "Let me see what you have." And I was like, "Oh, dude," she was like the shame.
Yeah.
Like you would have thought I was going to hell. Like she was gonna open up the floor and just toss me down, man.
It's a tough one though, and because I mean it's not an unnatural feeling for a teen,
right?
But it's a tough one to navigate. Again, I don't have to deal with it yet because my kids are so young. But you're there. You're just about at that age, and you don't want to. I would think you don't want to make your kids feel shameful, like they're doing something wrong, but you also you had a lot of good points there. You don't want them to just have easy access to it and think that that's normal and desensitize themselves.
That's a real problem. That's real. So,
we keep it really light. Like a lot of the guys who, like I've had guests on who have talked about like, hey, how do you talk to your kids about pornography? How do you talk to your kids about sex? Like for us, it's literally an ongoing conversation. And you're right. Like the worst thing you can do is like the shame and the guilt, because all that does is drives them to do that even more. So what we do in our house is we keep it like super light and we keep it fun and funny, like that kind of thing. Like, and we'll make jokes about it. It's like he'll be in the shower, be like, "Come on, dude, like save some hot water." You know what I mean? Like things like that, like or like And I never like hesitate to like I'll compliment my wife. I'm like, man, like you're wearing those yoga pants really well tonight, and they're like, God, Dad, come on, stuff like that. I'm like, come on, man, you never grow out of it, But like we keep it light.
Humor is definitely the way through a lot of things. I've found that for myself that it definitely helps in so many aspects. You know what I mean? If you can find a humor side to a situation, it's incredibly helpful.
It is. I mean, because that way, like, they don't feel so weird. Like because my boys, especially the two older ones, they will openly, they're like, hey man, I need a man to man. That's what they call it. Like I need a man. That means they have questions. Mm-hmm. And those conversations happen pretty often. I think and they feel comfortable doing it. And I think the reason they feel comfortable doing it is because we keep it light. Yeah. It's like if they say, hey, we need a man to man, be like, it's not a production. It's not like this thing like, okay, well, what is it? Like, it's like, yeah, man, what do you got? So I always tell them, I'm like, if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you the details. I was like, I do tell them this, though. I'm like, don't ask me about me and your mother, though. Yeah. That's the rule. I was like, if you do, I will not tell you anything. Right. Like, that's the rule. So don't ask that.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. I was like, but you got questions about it? I'll tell you everything you'll need to know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting job being a dad,
Yeah. Really well, I mean, I find it fascinating though when your daughter gets to be dating age. Like,
don't even talk about it. Don't even talk about it.
I can't even fathom like a guy coming here and being like, "Mr. Edgar, I'll be home in 30 minutes." Like, you know what I mean? Please don't kill me.
Yeah. My daughter can date when she gets married. Yeah, she can date.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. We'll see. I mean, I'm lucky to have two older brothers too. So
yeah, true.
Hopefully that'll help out a little bit. But really, it's. Even more than that, it's it's how you raise her too.
Oh yeah.
So show her that she needs to be respected and stuff like that. And I think you got to have your daughter. She has to know she has self-worth.
Yeah.
That's probably a big thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think fathers play a pivotal role there. You often hear the term.
With Mia Khalifa, I don't know if she.
You often hear the term attributed to girls that make poor choices is she's got daddy issues. You hear that term a lot. I don't know where that was coined, but it seems to make sense.
I mean, I think I'm even seeing that. Even like serial killers come from not having dads around and stuff too much. You know what I mean? Like it's just broken families. Just period. I think it's just bad for kids in general.
It's a weird thing because I do a show like Larry's and I advocate for the importance of fatherhood role in a kid's life, and I think it's equally as important as a mom's role. I really do. But then there's such a issue in today's day and age with involved fathers. I mean, there is. It's a lot of dads that bring children into this world and don't choose to have any part of their life. And I think it really hurts the dads that do want to, it leaves a bad stigma on us that really want to be actively involved and to feel truly like I do that my role is every bit as important as their mom's. And there's an incredible amount of uninvolved fathers in their children's life right now, and maybe it's always been that way, but certainly as a dad, I notice it more,
Yeah. Do you want to see something kind of scary? So grab your phone and just open up the internet and put fatherless home statistics, and it'll come right up. And just, if you want, just read off, 3 to 5.
I have Mia Khalifa on here right now. Hang
on. Yeah, fatherless home statistics. It's crazy, man.
I'll just read the Wikipedia top one that pops up. 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. That comes from the U.S. Department of Health census. 5 times the average. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless. Wow, that's mind-blowing. Are from fatherless homes. 32 times the average. Father factor in education. Fatherless children are twice as likely to drop out of school. So then I ask you, Larry, who's sort of dedicated your life at this point to speaking and advocating for dads and making this your life's mission, why does that not get recognized? Why is there more emphasis not put on, if those numbers are accurate, which I'm sure they are, why is there not more emphasis in many aspects, just generally talked about in the court system when divorces happen? Why isn't there a bigger emphasis put on how the integral role a father has? What would you say?
I think that in line right there is the biggest question. Yeah. And I think that's why we all scratch our heads on that one. I think those statistics, I think it's absent father, like completely gone,
I'm sure,
right? Yeah. But I agree with you. I think, unfortunately, the dad's, like, the voice of the dad, like, has been silenced a lot. The impact of a father, as far as, like, even if you have 50% custody, the impact of a father is, even just having that will make a huge impact on a kid's life. And I don't think that that's fully recognized. Yeah. There's another statistic in there. I think it's 93% of incarcerated individuals come from a fatherless home. So yeah, the statistics are there. And, part of this mission, man, is like, we want to improve those numbers. Yeah. We want to, Meg Meeker, I don't know if you know who she is. She wrote the book, Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. She's a New York Times bestselling author on the topic. She came on the show and she said, if you put a dad in every single home in America, a lot of the problems that we face with would go away.
No question. I believe that.
If they just had that guidance, right? Or, because a lot of it is just like a situation like I had. Like, you get to see your kids 50% of the time, man, that's so much better. And those statistics are not necessarily, going to impact your kids. Mm-hmm. But like me growing up with a fatherless environment, I definitely, I can tell you firsthand, I didn't have that guidance. I was depressed. I failed 8th grade. I overate. I had no confidence. I didn't have any skills. Like, I had nobody there to really be like, hey, how do I talk to a girl? Like, how do I fix something? Like, how do I, even having just a manly conversation, it hardly ever happened. And when it did, it was always like a toxic element that was in there, a guy who was drunk or he was into drugs or like, and so it wasn't, not only was he not there, but like it was the extreme of what you didn't want. So, but yeah, that's not what we want.
It's kind of remarkable you turned out the way you did, Larry, given your story and your background. It certainly easily could have gone the other way, and you could have been that absentee father, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm happy to see that.
Well, thanks.
Not only did it work out that you're involved there for your 4 boys, but you're also a voice for a lot of dads out there, too. And not only just maybe not the voice, but you're also there to give advice to and maybe steer, guide. It's not a lot of places I know where men or dads rather can turn to.
It's good too. Like, you're in the middle of it. You're in the thick of it. You got 15 to 6, right? Or 5. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you kind of all stages. It's happening live as it goes.
What do you find any age to be? I'm sure. Listen, I'm only at the 6-year mark. That's as far as I made it. But do you find any age to be more trying than other ages, or they're all present their own perplexities and okay.
All of them.
I've heard. I'd say overwhelmingly for me as a dad that's only got a 4. I keep hearing, you just wait till they're teenagers. You have no idea what you're dealing with. I keep hearing teenage years are the hardest, is what I hear.
To be honest, I have actually felt, for at least my personality, that the teenage years have been the easiest.
Oh wow!
I don't know why. I think for me, I don't know how you guys are, but like the toddler stage, like 5 and below, I have a hard time with that, because like it's hard for me just the way I'm wired, like to speak 4-year-old or like for the 5-year-old to ask me a question like, Dad, can you give me some cereal? Dad, can you give me some cereal? Dad, can you give me some cereal? I feel like he takes my vertebrae and he shakes it. You know what I'm saying? So like that's a tougher age for me, because they're raw, they're relentless, they're like a little animal, right? Like my 15-year-old, my 13-year-old, I love this stage, because I treat them like young men now. And we have more like adult conversations. We can do the same things. We can go work out. We have a lot of the same interests. We talk about girls at school that they like, you know, we talk about life lessons. Like, we get to have like these really cool conversations. Now, I will say this. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. You know, like I said, my 13-year-old is, he's really pushing his boundaries, but in a way, that's kind of what he should be doing right now. Right. But, you know, the conversation that I had with him is, I'm like, look, you know, you're really impacting the trust of our relationship. And I explained to him, I'm like, when you impact trust on any relationship, not just me, right? Because I told him, I was like, you sneaking your Chromebook in your room to watch TikTok, that's not really what I'm mad at. It's the fact that you're sneaking it, then you're being dishonest about it, and then when you're confronted, you're lying about it. Right. I was like, the TikTok thing, whatever. I was like, here's the problem. Not long from now, you're going to be behind the wheel of a car. If I can't trust you and you're lying to me, how am I going to trust you behind the wheel of a car? Right. I was like, he loves football, he plays football. I was like, if your coach can't trust you to make the proper decisions on the field, how do you think that's going to impact your play time? And I always try to put it in like, you know, like this is impacting everywhere. So like for him, you know, it's more like, and I just simply asked him, I'm like, what kind of man do you want to be? Do you want to be the man that can't be trusted, or do you want to be the man that owns his mistakes and moves on? So like those conversations, they get to be a bit more complex and heated. Like my 7-year-old, 5-year-old, like, oh, you did that, go in timeout. This it's a totally different animal, but I like it. I do like it. Yeah.
For me personally, when my kids were babies, like firstborn, until, you know, probably 6 months old, until they really start doing things. I mean, they basically sleep, cry, poop. It's hard to relate to them. You know what I mean? It's not that I didn't love them, and I changed plenty of diapers, trust me. But it's like they really haven't become little humans yet. You know, there's not a lot of interaction there. You know, not that there aren't cute moments, but once those first start happening, like once they start to crawl, it's not that long before they start to walk, and then it's not that long before they start to talk, and then once those things start happening, it's like, holy shit! Every day I can't wait to come home and be like, what's new? What are you doing? What are they doing today? You know. But when they're babies, you know, for me, at least in my relationship and in my house, you know, they seem to be a little more attached to mom because, you know, mom has that nurturing, motherly thing, and not that I wasn't close with and they have milk, but not that which your son was recently investigating with the big bees,
right? The 4 bees.
You know, that for me, I don't want to say it was a hard age. It was just more of a unrelatable ages, I guess, you know. But you know, once they started like crawling, things happened so fast from that point. It seemed like in my world, you know.
Yeah, it flies, man. Well, you've got almost a teenager.
Yeah. It's just.
What do you got? 3 years left till he starts driving?
Ooh. Well, no, he'll be 4 years. 4 years. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Save the caddy. Give him the caddy first.
Yeah, there you go. Give him the caddy. Yeah.
Right.
He's got like 600 horsepower.
No.
Shit, by that
kids,
time
it's so crazy. Kids don't even care about driving in here nowadays.
Yeah.
Compared, like, when we were young, couldn't wait to get my license. Kids, they have Uber. Like, I was taking Uber.
It's funny. It's funny you said that. My sister's daughter, my niece, like when I got my license at 15, my permit at 15, you know, 100 years ago back in Maine, and I couldn't wait to drive. I couldn't take the test fast enough. It was part of my independence. But then fast forward to my niece who just turned 23. When she was 16 or 17, she didn't want to get her driver's license. Her mother had to push her to get it. You know, it was like, come on. Her reasoning was that they lived in Michigan. There was a lot of snow. She didn't like driving. But even when the snow was gone, and it was like, had to push her. Didn't. And for me, I was like, Jesus, like that was everything to me. Everything.
Oh, yeah, man.
I couldn't understand it, you know.
On my 16th birthday, I was taking that test.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then I had to go back the next day.
Come hell or high water, I would have been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're right, Frank. It is a little different now.
Yeah.
Because I guess ease and access to such things as
you got Uber and DoorDash, you're good to go. Nothing.
You don't have to do anything.
Yeah. That's sad. It's scary about this world, though, too. Same aspect, you know.
Instant gratification. Everything is at your fingertips. It's literally instant gratification, you know.
I'm taking my 15-year-old out this weekend and just taking him up to the high school, and I'm gonna teach him how to drive. So he's excited about that. He's never been behind the wheel of a car.
That's awesome.
So we're gonna do that on Saturday.
That's awesome.
So.
That's how I learned.
Yeah.
I learned on dirt roads in Maine, my dad's old pickup truck, and I sat in his lap and looked over the wheel, and we drove 5 miles an hour, and I think that's like a rite of passage. That's something that most dads do with their kids, and you'll remember it I remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
I remember the pickup. I remember the roads we were on. I remember my dad, just tweaking the wheel a little bit because he didn't want to help me completely, and yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, that is a big rite of passage.
Yeah.
Teach your kid how to drive.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
My grandfather taught me on his Ford LTD station wagon.
Yes.
That thing was a tank.
Yes.
Made of like steel.
Yeah.
It was a V8, and I mean it felt like it gave like 4 miles to the gallon. This thing was a monster. So, but that's what I had to learn how to drive on. So at least mine gets my Nissan. So
Yeah. Right. Right.
or Frankie's Caddy. If
Yeah. You remember how you learned to drive? Your dad teach you?
Yeah, I was driving. I was
Just stealing cars?
my cousin. He used to drive my cousin's Mustang.
Really?
Yeah, it was a stick. I was 14, whipping it around.
No shit.
Yeah,
Like on the road or parking lots?
on the road.
Yeah, he's a little bit of an outlaw. He is.
A little bit.
Surprised you didn't learn on a bike, on a motorcycle.
No, I remember my love for bikes and exactly how it happened. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. I grew up on dirt bikes, so my first bike I got was a little Honda 50.
Honda 50, yeah.
My dad bought that, all metal, like no plastic, and that was my first bike. So the passion was there early for two wheels. And then fast forward to, again, growing up in a very tiny town, a little town called Cherryfield, Maine, population of around 1,000 people. They would have a 4th of July parade every year. And it was just guys. My dad had a business, so he'd put his 18-wheeler in it. And it was, it was just a bunch of the businesses in town. And then some kids would march in it. It was just a little parade that went through town, but everybody attended. The whole town attended, and it was fun. It was cool. It was a cool thing to do. And I remember I was down there, and I think I was like maybe 16, maybe 17. Probably had just had my driver's license, just got it. And these kids showed up. I remember it was my buddy Jason, his friend Todd. They showed up on. I remember Jason had a katana, which is like this is like they call them can of tuna.
Yeah.
Todd had like a GSX-R 600, and I remember they drove down the street where the parade was. They were like last in line, and I was like, I just remember yearning to be like, want to have a bike. And I said, I'm getting a bike. And I went out and I took my motorcycle test. And by the end of that summer, I went out and bought a GSX-R 600. It was my first bike I had, street bike, and the passion was there. And to this day, I still have that same passion. I love riding motorcycles. I don't ride the way I used to because I'm old. I used to bounce down the road, like Frankie said, jump right up. And I hurt now. I lay there for a while now. So I don't ride like I used to, but I still enjoy nothing more than getting on my bike and going for a ride. I love it. It's just
You still have one now?
I just made the transition recently from crotch rockets. At my last crotch rocket was a KTM RC 1190R. But anyway, I love that bike, but it was just the performance. I mean, it's a track bike. It's a track bike built for the road. It was so hard for me to ride it like a normal human being, and I got 2 kids, and I was just pushing that thing all the time. Not so much stunting it because it's not really built for stunting, but just cornering the hell out of it, always going from 0 to 100 in 4 seconds and wheeling it and things like that. And I'm like, my dad said this saying once, there's nothing you can do on earth to extend your time, but there's a whole lot you can do to shorten it. And that's what I was doing. I was pushing the envelope. So, and not that you can't die on anything. You can. It's dangerous just generally speaking, but I went out and bought a road glide. I got a Harley now, so
nice,
it doesn't have the performance that the street bikes do. So, but I still like to ride. This guy's got a Harley. I like to get him out once in a while.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I do. I barely ride.
You're gonna this summer, buddy.
Yeah.
I did. I went twice this summer.
No, this coming summer we're gonna ride.
I went twice the past summer.
I know. But we'll ride more this summer. Okay. This coming summer.
We're a dirt bike family.
Yeah.
So I have a 250 CRF Honda. Yeah. And then we've got a 70, we've got 100, and we got 2 4-wheelers.
Oh, so everybody's got one.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
As of this year, everybody's got one. I bought the 100 and another 4-wheeler.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we go ride. My father-in-law is he's 63 years old, and I have 2 brother-in-laws. One is 40, the other one's 32, and my father-in-law, who is 63, can outride all of us.
Oh yeah,
he kicks our ass. Like he can he can ride those dirt bike trails.
That's what I want to be at 63. That's what I want to be. It's crazy.
No one can keep up with him.
Yeah.
He's been riding for 50 years. That's probably.
Awesome.
And but yeah, we go quite a bit. We didn't go last year a whole lot, but this year we'll go again.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's one of the things we like to do too. Those are fun.
Good riding down there in St. Louis? I mean,
it's actually not bad. There's a lot of trails. We got a lot of sand dunes, a lot of sand flats.
Cool.
We've got dedicated state parks just for ATVs and dirt bikes and that kind of thing. So we like to go riding.
It's one of the more difficult things around here for off-road. There isn't a tremendous amount. South Jersey offers a fair amount, but right in this area, there's not. You kind of get in trouble most places you ride around here. So I was curious. In your neck of the woods, how it is in Maine, you could literally get on your bike in your backyard and go anywhere you want to go. But so he's got some dirt bikes for his kids. Where do you guys go when you go?
Honestly, we don't go. I mean, just.
I think I saw you one time.
I went down the power line.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw you posted a video on the power line. You don't get harassed in there? No.
No.
Is that over off by the college?
By the college.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All by Ocean County College. There's trails back there too.
Technically, are you riding illegally when you're back there?
I don't think so.
Yeah, okay.
I mean,
it's only illegal if you get
caught. Right. True. Facts.
Yeah. It would be nice to just go out your backyard. That's the way to go.
That's how I grew up, man. Exactly like that, In high school, everybody, even in grade school, even in grammar school, we all had quads and dirt bikes, and everybody had one. And there was, even though you might live 12 miles from your buddy, there was a way to meet up through trails. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. So that's what we did on the weekends. Yeah. We all went, and it was harmless. I've talked about this before on the show with drugs being so rampant, even back in my little tiny town, and Tom's River certainly has its fair share of it. But back then, you just got on your dirt bike, and everybody in Maine has a camp or a cabin on a lake or a river or a pond somewhere. And you got on your dirt bike and you told your dad, I'm going to Danny Kane's camp for Saturday night. And you rode your dirt bike from the house to his camp, which might be 20 miles away. Somebody showed up with a 12-pack and you hung out, and it was clean, innocent, fun, teenage fun. Now I see it just different up there. Even up there where I'm from, I mean, there's heroin is rampant. People break into people's house. Nobody locked their door when I was a kid. Just a much different time that we live in. And I'm sure I'm accentuating the negatives, which probably I shouldn't be. That's not a good way to do things. I'm sure there are positives. Technology has some amazing positives to it too, but just a much different world. And I don't think I would want to be a kid growing up in today's day and age. I think they have a little bit of a tougher road than I did.
They do. I mean, everybody's accessible, which is great. Right. But everybody's accessible, and that's not so great.
Right.
I'm launching a new book here in 30 days. It's called Screen Time, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And it's a kid's book, and it's meant for a parent to read it to the kid. And it talks, I've had a few experts come on the show as it pertains to screen time, what it does to the brain over time, raises anxiety and that kind of thing. Not like 15 minutes of an iPad, that's not going to do anything. It's the parents that put their kid in front of the iPad for 4 straight hours, right? And nothing else. And so the Screen Time book is all about, hey, these are the cool things about technology. These are the blessings. We're incredibly connected. You can literally FaceTime somebody, and see them on the other side, right? You can text somebody, something that you want to text them, something, maybe it's something positive. But at the same time, over time, if there's too much screen time, it turns the producer part of your brain off, because you're nothing but a consumer, right? It's just consuming. So what that does is that when kids go to do homework, draw a picture or whatever else, they're like, I don't know what to do. And then of course the telltale sign is the 2 words, I'm bored. Yeah. And if they don't have a screen, they don't know what to do. And it's it's almost like anxiety. I don't even know what to do with myself. Yeah. So yeah.
For sure. I mean, to pull that back into our own little world here, Frankie and I, as adults in the podcast room, because it certainly affects everybody. That's why we like having in-person guests on the couch. And I'm not saying we won't go to Zoom, but we probably will at some point. But there's a person, being able to look you in the eye and having a connection with you and a conversation with you, and a personability with you, and learning who Larry is in person, I think is a little different than doing it through technology.
If he was sitting in the seat, he'd probably
Here we go.
fuss his
Here we
way,
go.
so.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Add that to the list.
Yeah. No, I agree. I like the in-persons so much better.
I mean, it does such a more natural feel to it.
It is. Yeah, it really is.
But but the Zoom it just gives so much opportunity.
Yeah, the guest list just opens tremendously when you have Zoom. You know, you can hit somebody up and be like, "Hey, you're busy next Thursday," and they can find 20 minutes in their day where they can, you know, and you can definitely pull some bigger guests. So
you can,
you know?
So
I think that eventually, you know, we'll succumb to technology, but our first choice will always be to put asses in the seat. You know.
Yeah, you should. You should. I'm interviewing Matthew McConaughey on Monday.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean.
But so when we booked
when
we booked him, I was like, I told my assistant, I was like, ask if we can do it in person.
Yeah.
I was like, we'll fly Jeremy in. I was like, you know, we'll do it in person, and they were like, nope.
Yeah,
can't do that. So, but we're getting him on Zoom.
That's amazing.
That's good.
Cool.
That's amazing.
That's a good get right there.
Wow, that's huge.
All right.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
He's like they wait. I get older and they stay the same.
That was his first movie. That was his first movie.
Dazed and Confused.
That was
good.
Yeah,
that was great.
That was awesome.
If you haven't read his book, Green Lights, it's really good.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
That's really good.
He has his own podcast, right, called Green Lights. Is that it, or is it the book?
No, the book.
It's the audio book.
Yeah,
okay,
audio book,
yeah.
and he reads it. So he reads it himself, which is a really good book.
I'm not, like a starstruck guy, and a lot of Hollywood has lost me, and I'm not huge fans of everybody, but he's a guy that I have always liked and have nothing negative to say about him at all. I really like Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, the one thing I've learned about doing the podcast, because on Dad Edge we've just been blessed with some amazing guests, and I remember the first time I interviewed you, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy, like Frankie Edgar, like I was starstruck. And one thing you realize, like, doing this work and doing it for so long, is like, man, it's like no matter how popular you are or a celebrity, or when it comes to being a father, it's like, man, nothing will humble you more. And that's like the one thing that every man shares common ground with. Like, we all put our pants on the same way, and that's very refreshing. And the fact that, like, no matter like how much you're in the limelight and how many people know who you are, it's like, what I've noticed is men are, number one, very, very humble when they talk about it, and number two, they're very open to talk about it. It's like, it's always a very refreshing conversation, to open it up, because you get past the fine, good, and busy. You get to talk about the detail and the ins and outs and the dynamics and the complexities and the highs and the lows and everything. Yeah. So it's been a cool experience. But I'm with you on that. Since
you mentioned Matthew McConaughey, to kind of go back a little bit and talk about something you mentioned earlier, anxiety, which is something I've dealt with my entire life. A big name like that might make me a little anxious at first. Not that I'd shy away from it, because I like tackling my fears, and I wouldn't shy away from it. But will you get anxious before that interview or doing that interview? Because he's Matthew McConaughey?
That's a good question. And I mean, like I said, I've done 700 shows now, and we've had some fantastic names on the show. I would venture he's definitely the biggest guest we've had so far. As far as like how many people know who he is and that kind of thing. But for a minute, I was like, when I saw him show up, like, my assistant texted me, she's like, guess what? And I'm like, what? And cause she's been trying to get him for like a month or so. And she sent me a GIF of him going, gotcha. And I was like, are you serious? She's like, yeah, next Monday, 4 p.m.
That's awesome.
And I saw it show up on my calendar. And for a minute, I was just like, I was sitting there with my wife, and I was like, we just booked Matthew McConaughey. She's like, are you kidding me? I was like, no. She's like, are you nervous? I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
But then, like, I've had several days to sink in. I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna treat this any different than I do any other show, because I think people feel that energy, and I think it's weird for them, right? But if you just be like, we're just gonna have a conversation,
correct?
I mean, like, let's talk like we would talk, like we're talk to anybody else.
Overthinking is what I do that kills me. If I overthink it and I put too much emphasis on myself and too much pressure on myself. I do so much better when I come down here and just wing it.
Yeah.
When I just wing it and I don't put a lot of thought into it or don't put a lot of pressure on myself, I listen to it back and I'm like, that flowed pretty good. I don't know what I was nervous about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, and I'm not just saying this in general. I mean that goes for all aspects of my life. My time when I was doing reality TV and speaking in front of people. I remember, I can remember a million examples where I got super nervous, and when I learned to control it and be like, listen, these are all just normal people, just like you are. They all wake up the same, they all eat the same, they all shit the same, they all sleep. You're putting this unrealistic pressure on yourself. Just be you.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to do.
I agree. I think that's the best approach. And the other thing too is it makes the other person feel at ease.
Right.
Because I truly believe that they can feel like that energy. There has been one guest though that did wig me out a little bit. You know who Jocko Willink is?
Of course. Yeah.
So I had Jocko on, and he popped up on the screen like when I was and he was, he's Jocko.
Yeah.
And I was like, and we started talking, and one question I always like to ask, I'm like, hey, look, especially the special operators, like the SEALs and that kind of thing, I'm like, is there anything we can't talk about? Like, should we not mention your kids' names? Like, should we do that? And he was really cool. He's like, no, he's like, I'm pretty much an open book. He's like, just do me a favor. Don't ask me about my oldest daughter because we're kind of on the outs right now. He's like, and don't ask me about my sex life. I was like, I wouldn't do that anyway, but okay. And I noticed for the first half of that show, like I was like, I cannot believe I'm talking to this guy. And I felt like he felt that. And then after a while, it like clicked in. I was like, stop.
Yeah, he doesn't feel
right.
That. Yeah.
And then we just started talking about like how he goes about fatherhood and marriage and all this stuff. And then he eased up, and I eased up, and then he eased up. Yep. And I could tell that, but like but that was years ago.
Yeah.
And I can definitely tell that when you speak to somebody, they feel that energy of like, oh, you are this, and I am not even worthy to even be speaking to you right now, and it makes them feel uncomfortable. Right. So it's just a regular conversation.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
approach it that way is probably the best way.
Yeah.
Does Frankie Edgar ever get nervous? What makes you nervous? This guy's spoke in front of I almost said the Giants, but I believe it was the Jets.
The Jets.
He's spoken in front of some, which would make me nervous as hell because I'd feel. Probably like I didn't prepare well enough. Probably like I wasn't going to have a good delivery. And it probably would have been fine. You know what I mean? I probably would have prepared enough.
Been like your wedding night.
Yeah.
Is that number 4? Is that 4?
Explains a lot. But does what does? I mean, we
look at I get nervous as hell for all that stuff. I used to hate getting up in front of class and talking. I'm like, oh, man, here we go. But, I've done the Jets. I've done Amazon. I've done some Fortune 500 companies, VirtuStream, I think it was, and I've done numerous speaking engagements, and I kind of wing it half the time. Mm-hmm. I have my preparation that I prepared one time, and I kind of and the way I do it, I'm like, dude, these people don't want me back. They won't ask me back. That's just about it. What am I gonna do?
Yeah.
What about fighting? I mean, after 16 years, I mean, is it just like?
Yeah, no, I'm much better with obviously, but I know when I first got in UFC and I would get a call from my fight, as soon as I heard who I was fighting, I would get the butterflies. I get all nervous. I wouldn't stay nervous obviously the whole time, but you anytime you think of it, you get nervous. And now I'm like, I remember this last fight. I was talking to my wife after weigh-ins. I'm like, I'm not nervous at all. What the fuck, And then Saturday morning when I woke up for the fight, I'm like, all right, I feel nervous.
Yeah,
I'm good. And that's the best way to approach it, I think. Because what are those nerves on Friday doing for you? Or during the week doing for you? Nothing. I mean, really, I try not to be nervous until I show up for the fight. And usually as soon as I walk in the back of the fight, I'm nervous all day of the fight. I'm not very hungry all day. But as soon as I show up in the back, I'm like, I'm good. Because now I know, all right, now I'm fighting.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like you're in that zone.
Yeah,
right?
Like, all right, I'm good. I start joking with everybody. I'm laughing. I'm in a good mood. And I'm ready to go. Yeah.
Is it still... Like, does this profession, does it still bring you a lot of joy?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to do anything else.
Yeah. That's cool.
I enjoy doing it.
And the reason I asked that is just because, like, man, 16 years, that's a long time to do any job, right? Or any career. And has there been anything that has been surprising? Like, if you think back 16 years ago and you got your first shot and you're like, wow, I'm doing this. Has there been anything that has been just completely shocking or surprising?
I think supporting my family, giving them a life like through fighting is a little surprising.
Yeah.
Early on, when I first got into this, I did it just because I wanted to fight. I didn't know how realistic it was going to be. I think when I first started, UFC didn't even have a 55-pound division, and I thought I was going to fight in Japan if I wanted to. And I'm like, I'll do that for fun. And I was still, until my third fight in UFC, I was in the union as a plumber. So I was getting up, working, training at night, and fighting on the weekends, So to be able to do this for a job and give my family a good life, and that's definitely a little surprising, and very happy because of it.
That's awesome.
Was there a moment where you knew you'd made it and knew that Frankie Edgar's name
it was after.
Would be synonymous with fighting? Like people would recognize your name.
I think after the title, you recognize that. You got to achieve something pretty special for that to set in.
Wasn't the commercial you did with Live Tiger?
No. But my third fight in UFC, I got into the next contract of and I'm like, all right, I could do this for real. I remember having to tell I think, like, listen, I'm not coming to work no more. I don't want to do this.
Was that an easy conversation to have with your dad?
Yeah,
no, we talked about. He knew it was coming. Right. I knew I wanted to fight. And he supported it. But he had a successful business too. He's still running it now. Right. But I could have easily taken that over and had success there. But I took a chance and kind of rolled the dice and has since worked out.
Yeah, it worked out for sure.
I read a statistic that 82% of men go to a job that they hate.
Wow.
Or over 8 out of 10 men go to a job that they hate. So the fact that you love what you do, man, you're in that minority, and that is so cool, because you're doing something, and I'm not going to discount that. I'm sure it's hard, right? It's hard physically, mentally, emotionally. It's draining at times, but at the end of the day, you're like, no, I like what I do. I really like what I do, and that joy, man, it like spills over into the family, into friendships, into just life in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What they say, if you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life, right? Something like that. What's his name saying?
I think you got it. Yeah. I think I fall somewhere in the middle. I absolutely do not despise waking up in the morning and go to work. I like going to work. I have a good camaraderie with the guys I work with. I like the company I work for. I've been doing it forever. I'm a union guy. I've been there 23, almost 24 years. But I don't know that I'd consider it to be like my life's passion or anything like that. There's a lot of days where I think, I wonder if I'd picked another choice. But for now, the point I'm at in my life, it's the safe bet. To roll the dice and completely go a different route is a bet I'm not willing to take at this point. You know what I mean? Like, it pays my bills, it pays my mortgage, it gives my kids good insurance, it gives me good insurance. It's so, yeah, I never despise waking up in the morning and going to work at all. I wouldn't say that I'm like, God damn, this is going to be the best. I wouldn't say that either. But like I said, I like the guys I work with. I like the job that I do. It affords me a lot of securities, and so I wouldn't quit it just to take a whim and go do something else at 45 years old yet.
Right.
I like doing this, and maybe this will be something. Maybe this is our bro out time is what we call it.
Yeah,
it's a little side thing that we do, and I feel like it's helped me in many ways. We were just talking about anxiety. I feel like this show's helped me tremendously with anxiety. I felt it's helped me with knowledge and learning. I've learned a lot of people's personal experiences on here and a lot of points of view that maybe I would have never understood otherwise, And I'm a pretty convicted guy, like when I feel a certain way, it's hard to make me feel a different way. And I'm not saying that anybody has come on the show and completely changed my perspective, but they've certainly made me think outside the box. So I think that's good, and I enjoy doing this, man.
Yeah.
You gonna leave me, buddy? You stick with me?
No. I'm still here.
Cool.
Still here.
Cool.
I'll let you rent out the basement.
No, that's good. I always tell people, man, if you ever have the inkling or the urge to podcast, just do it. Yeah. Do it. And because what it does is it forces you to grow. It helps you with communication. It helps you with forming new connections. And yeah, you're right. It's like, it doesn't matter if somebody asked a question. If you answered a question, you get to learn something new all the time. I always say for my podcast, it's a front row seat to the most invaluable education out there.
Good way to put it.
Yeah. One of the other things I'll say too is you mentioned when I was talking about my childhood and how crazy it was and all that, my wife and I were I was headed before doing this work, I was headed for a really bad place. And my wife and I were having this conversation. It was her birthday a couple weeks ago. And I asked her, I was like, where do you think we would be if I hadn't done Dad Edge? And without even hesitation, she goes, we'd be divorced.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, really? She goes, yeah. She goes, I didn't realize how much you weren't showing up then because it was normal. She goes, but how much you've evolved and like how good our relationship is and how good you are with the kids, and you have your bad moments like everybody else, but it is night and day compared to what it was. She was like, there was a time before you started doing this work that I was like, I don't know if we're gonna last 5 more years.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy. So like, without doing this work, I mean, I don't think I'd have the relationship, or I'd have 2 boys, I wouldn't have 4.
Yeah.
So it was a huge transfer. Just doing the podcast alone was just a huge awakening.
Knowing that, I'm sure that makes you more passionate about it and makes you want to put more effort into it,
I can't ever see, I mean, like I said, next month will be the 6th year doing this. I can't ever see not doing it, just because it's a constant learning. It's a constant tool to learn. And especially, I was talking to my 13-year-old the other day when we were having that tough heart-to-heart, and I told him, I was like, I remember growing up. I remember being your age. I remember stepping out of line. I remember getting caught in lies and that kind of thing. And I remember, like, the way my mom would react. And I'd always think, like, well, she knows what she's doing. She's a mom. She's got all the right answers. She's always right. She's a parent. She knows everything. And I looked at him, and I was like, being a parent is a lot like it's your first day of school every day.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was like, I have a good grasp of the basics and the foundation and like our core values, but sometimes I get challenged and I'm like, ooh, yeah, no idea what to do on this one.
Yeah.
And so that it just kind of get to show them that human side. Cause but doing this and being able to interview experts in an area, like I just interviewed a guy on raising teenagers, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I had talked to you like months ago. But it's a great opportunity to talk to people
for sure
and learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know much to learn. I'm teaching Roger a lot of shit.
You
though.
are, buddy. you are. It's funny, talking about podcasts. I think we've been on a little over a year now, and I've seen a number, especially even in this area of podcasts, and a lot of them reached out to us like, hey, we're local too or whatever. And a lot of them I don't hear anymore. They've either pod burned out or whatever. But I want to give a shout out to the Island Podcast Boys. That was the first podcast Frankie and I ever. We were guests on their show. The weird thing was actually in this room. They came here with their equipment. We sat down here. There was nothing in here, and we did their podcast because we knew we wanted to do our own. And we kind of wanted to see what it was about, learn some equipment or whatever. And they discontinued their show for a while. They kind of broke up, fell apart, and now they're back. So shout out to the Island Podcast Boys. They're back doing their thing. They're a good group of guys, man.
Funny dudes, man.
Funny dudes. And
they
so,
just get wild
cool.
and
so
have
stick with it, fellas. So
yeah, exactly. Don't pod burn out.
Yeah,
it's not for the faint of heart.
It's not. Yeah, consistency is key with anything. So, and we say that all the time.
That's right. Well, it's just like fighting, just like training.
Yeah.
You gotta
time in, time out.
Yep. How many fights have you done?
I don't know. 30, 32. I don't even know, honestly.
Holds a number of stats. I mean, he's got
30.
most time in the octagon.
I feel like 32, maybe.
Of any UFC fighter. Of any fighter. Most around 8 hours total. Can you imagine fighting for 8 hours?
Yeah.
No. It's crazy.
I can't imagine fighting for 8 minutes right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know my record.
You Googling yourself, bud?
I am. 34 total fight. 34, 35. I don't think it counts my one. 35.
35 fights.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And 36, I'm going to kick Rogers' ass in the basement.
I occasionally see guys, and there's a very famous guy that used to fight in the UFC. I'm drawing a blank on his name. I can picture him. But sometimes I see these stats, and they almost seem unrealistic. Where do those numbers come from? This kid, if I said his name, if I could remember it, you would absolutely know who he is. Jeremy Horn.
Oh,
Jeremy Horn. Jeremy
yeah.
Horn. It just popped in my head. Bro, he's in like hundreds of fights. What are those backyard brawls?
Some of them.
I mean,
Some
how
of them were like he fought. But I mean, this is before a lot of the commissions and stuff like that, regulations. I think he like fought like bar fights. We fought 3 fights in one night.
And those are
like
See, I thought they had to be sanctioned fights to be on your record, but
they were sanctioned, but not by a commission. Maybe.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
All right. Yeah, Jeremy Horn. Ever meet him? I always.
I think I have. I don't know. Maybe.
Dude's got a ton of fights.
He beat Chuck Liddell.
Yeah.
Chuck Liddell's first.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I saw Jeremy Horn on, I can't remember, it was a UFC sort of, not like a Where Are They Now, but it was like the most epic battle fights, and I can't remember who he was fighting, but I didn't know who he was at the time, and he had that bald head and everything, and he and the other guy he was fighting, I mean, it was like an all out like just brawl.
That's a guy that was just his life mission was to fight. I mean, anybody that's got that many fights, I mean, that's what he was put on earth to do. Like he's probably taking fights for $12 behind the bar.
Right.
Another guy is Street Jesus. I mean
Miles Vidal.
Miles Vidal. I mean he started out fighting in backyards too.
Oh yeah, he did like with Kimbo.
Kimbo,
yeah, street fights. Yeah.
You too, buddy. Yours just weren't on film.
No film.
You ever get any on film? No. This guy grew up fighting at the Jersey Shore, kicking ass and taking names, but I don't think anything was on film. No, yeah. That's evidence.
Yeah.
Hey, you go to jail for that. Probably on security camera somewhere.
maybe bamboos cameras.
Was there a fighter early on? I remember we would rent like from Blockbuster Video, like UFC 1, 2, 3, and 4, like with Hoist Gracie and I can see all
Ken
their names. Shamrock,
Dan Severance,
Keno.
Yeah. Severance would always, I remember he was the wrestler, right?
Yeah.
And but early on, was there a fighter that you admired, kind of growing up?
I mean, probably Randy Couture.
Yeah.
He was him, Matt Hughes. I was in college. That's when I kind of got into watching UFC. I watched UFC 2, I think, live. I was in 7th grade, so it was either 1 or 2 because I was like 93, so it had to be 1 or 2. I remember watching that live at my buddy's house, and then kind of UFC went underground. I think it wasn't on really pay-per-view. Then in college, it started coming back around a little bit. So we'd watch all the pay-per-views, and that's when Ultimate Fighter Show came on. That's when I kind of got the wheels going. But right then was like, Randy Couture, Matt Hughes were killing it, and they were wrestlers. So I kind of got attracted to them a little bit,
And Matt Hughes, actually, he grew up not far from where I live.
Yeah.
He grew up in
Illinois,
Highland, Illinois,
Yeah.
which is probably 50 miles from where I live.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, not too far. But, yeah, I remember those guys back in the day.
Yeah.
So, but Hoist Gracie, I didn't even know what jiu-jitsu was.
He really put the UFC on the map. I mean, really, or MMA in general, I should say. Even though he's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy, I mean, he showed that if you didn't have Brazilian jiu-jitsu as in your arsenal, you needed it in your arsenal.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, just showed what a smaller guy could do to a bigger guy.
Right.
Oh yeah,
There's
he
no
was
weight
only
classes back then.
180 pounds, I think.
He was
right?
like 170 at the time. Yeah.
And you fought multiple times in one night back then.
Yeah.
That's the craziest thing ever, man.
Yeah,
And he fought in his gi as well.
Yep.
So and he'd use that thing, to dig in some sort
It's
of
a
hold.
weapon.
Yeah.
But it also can be used against you, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Choke out your T-shirt.
I'm sure you would, buddy. You're angry. You got some anger issues over there.
I'm just saying you can choke someone out with a T-shirt.
Yeah, but you looked at me angrily when you said it.
So I have a question for you. I'm 45, and I have not done martial arts in 10 years. And now that I see my 7-year-old doing this, I've never done jiu-jitsu. The only thing I've done grappling-wise was wrestling. I wrestled
Well, listen,
in high
you
school.
got your camera guy here. Right in the next room, we got some mats. Would you want you want to roll with Frankie a little bit? We get it on camera.
I'm good.
I want to see that. I want to see that.
But no, I see him doing these classes, and I'm like,
You should start.
at
You should do it.
45.
Oh,
Yeah.
hell yeah. 100%, man. It's
It's
a gentle art.
a gentle art.
That's what they call it, the gentle art.
So let me ask. I don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, but it seems like it takes a long time to advance in jiu-jitsu, right? I mean, like
It does because of the system, but I mean, you're advancing though throughout it all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's sometimes it depends what academy you go to and stuff like that. But it's usually based on time in. 10 classes you get a stripe, 20 classes you get another stripe. Stuff like that. But sometimes then as you get blue belt, purple belt, stuff like that, then it's based on performance a little bit.
Okay.
But more time in than anything.
Got it.
I heard it described one time, which I thought made a lot of sense, is the art of being comfortable in uncomfortable positions.
Yeah.
It's just life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's very true.
What is Ricardo's got a saying about something? You quoted it a couple times about what makes a man, the essence of being a man. I forget what it was. You quoted it a few times in here.
Have I?
Yeah. Or maybe it was Henzo. I forget.
Fighting is the best thing a man can have in his soul.
No, it might be it. I might have been a little off.
I like that.
Sounds right.
That's cool.
He's like, and the way Henzo says it, he's like, everybody has fight in them. You fight to get out of bed in the morning. You fight not to eat the cheesecake. You fight not to go get Botox. Right?
He's digging on that one, but all right.
He picks on you now.
Yeah, man, it's brutal.
Yeah.
It's really.
No one picks on this guy. I got to bring him down on our level,
And you do every show, pal.
Yeah.
Every show. And I love you for it.
But yeah, fighting is, we all got to fight in our own way. Everyone has a fight, some kind of fight going on, So fighting's the best thing you can have in your soul. I'm down with that.
Makes a lot of sense when you think about it.
On that note, Larry, man, this was great to have you in here finally, man. This is really good to pick your brain, and it's good to have an ally on the
dad's side.
On the dad's side, and I'm sure Roger and I know myself, I'll be picking your brain, in the near future too. We're trying to deal with raising kids and, having boys that are getting about your boys' ages and stuff. So, yeah, man, good to have this contact and good to have you down in the room.
Larry, it's so much appreciated, man. For the people at home, or the guys, the dads at home that would like to get in contact with you or reach. You want to tell them where everybody can reach you, what your social media links are, where people can reach out to the Good Dad Project, and
yeah, you can find everything we're doing at gooddadproject.com. We're currently doing a rebranding, so probably within the next 60 to 90 days, everything will be at thedadedge.com, but everything will be redirected. But everything you can find just gooddadproject.com for right now. Instagram is the Dad Edge. As far as all my books are on Amazon. We've got a course on patience. But yeah, my last message would be, if you're a father and you're struggling, man, isolation is the enemy of excellence. And the definition of hell is meeting the man that you could have been when you're on your deathbed. So if you're not happy with the way things are going right now, man, there's always a way to learn new skills. And then the final thing that I'll say is this too, is I definitely want to acknowledge and appreciate the both of you guys for coming on my show and, just sharing very genuinely, the things that you guys are doing, how you go about fatherhood. And like I said, like on our group text is just that, I think that there's sides of men, there's sides of you guys that a lot of people don't get to see, and I've gotten to see it. And what I can tell your audience is that you guys are amazing, genuine people. And the way you go about fatherhood was just a ton of care and a lot of heart. And I just really appreciate, the relationship and appreciate you guys coming on the show and sharing your message.
Thank you, brother.
It means a lot.
Awesome.
Thank you, Larry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure and an honor.
Yeah.
Back at you.
Champ and the Tramp, out.
Check us out, guys. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. And my man Lair has got to sign the board up there before he leaves.
Let's go.